ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series What If Quirkless Deku Inherits the Power of Infinity. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. When he was born, there was much concern regarding the boy known as Izuku Yagi. Despite being born to the new parents Tashinori and Inko Yagi, he was far different in appearance from the two, and significantly different from his twin sister, Izumi Yagi. He bore hair white as snow, and eyes that bore a vibrant blue color, almost as if the skies of the earth and the tranquility of heaven had crossed and made something entirely different. Regardless, Inko had loved the child and cared for him to the best of her abilities. As for Tashinori, despite having a doctor confirm that this was indeed his child, and not the result of an affair, he always felt creeped out by the boy. His vibrant blue eyes, it felt like that they could stare into the deepest parts of his soul. Because of this, their relationship as father and son had slowly been strained, choosing to give most of his attention to his green curly-haired older sister. This would only continue to happen with the event that would somewhat change the boy's life forever. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your son is quirkless," the doctor said to his mother. "Oh dear, you really think there is something wrong?" Most of the kindergartners in his class have began to show signs already. His mother asked in worry. "My records say you're a 4th-generation quirk user. What powers do you and the boy's father have?" "Well, I have high-level telekinesis, and my husband has a basic strength quirk. They're useful enough, I suppose," the mother said, trying to be humble. Young Izuku here should have shown signs of one of these quirks, or have a combination of both, but after viewing his X-rays, I don't think he is going to. You see, when superpowers first began appearing, there were many research studies conducted, and doctors discovered a link between the bones of a person's foot and their likelihood of developing a quirk, he said, bringing up an X-ray. The X-ray itself showed what looked like the pinky toe having 2 distinct joints, causing the mother slight worry. People with powers only have 1 joint in their pinky toes. Their bodies have developed into a more streamlined version of the human form. On his X-rays, it shows he has 2 joints in his pinky toes, like roughly 20% of the other population. Based on the research that is available, it's safe to say your son isn't going to develop a quirk. I see. While the two continued to discuss some of the other facts of the visit, such as the news of Izumi's powerful strength enhancement quirk, likely the result of a mutation from Tashinori's quirk, Izuku stood up from his seat and went walking through the halls, the bright fluorescent light reflecting off his snow-white hair. But while doing so, he began to notice strange things around him. Creatures of sorts of all shapes and sizes that hid behind the doors to patients' rooms, each spouting out only a few lines of dialogue, such as "I don't want to die," or "Would you like a refund?" Izuku didn't have a clue as to what these things were, or why it was they were there. But he knew one thing was certain. Whatever these things were, they were afraid of him. Why that was, even he wasn't sure. "Izuku, honey, is something the matter?" "Those things, they are afraid of me," Izuku said to her. "What things?" "The monsters inside those rooms," he said, pointing to all the rooms in the hall. Inko looked at her son with worry, trying to see what he was seeing, but could find nothing. After returning home with her 2 children, Inko leaned over the counter in worry. She knew her son was different, but something like this only created more concern for her. Was she feeding him something that caused him to hallucinate? No, otherwise Izumi would be doing the same thing. So what could be the cause? "Hey Inko, is everything all right?" Tashinori asked his wife. Breaking out of her trance, she turned to her husband and looked down at the ground, causing him much worry. "I'm fine, honey. It's just Izuku said something that has me worried." "What did he say?" "Well, after the doctor did an examination on Izumi and Izuku, I saw Izuku looking at the hallway. He said those things, they are afraid of me." "Those things? What did he say they were?" asked Tashinori. "Monsters." "Monsters? I fear this may be his coping mechanism after finding out he won't develop a quirk." Tashinori pondered on this. He knew from experience that he tried many ways to cope with the reality that he was not going to be possessing a quirk, but that was usually something to distract his mind off it, not have an overactive imagination. "Don't worry, honey. I'm sure things will be fine. He's probably doing his best to come to terms with the reality of things. After this, Izuku began to notice something strange occur at his kindergarten. Whenever he tried to approach the other children, they would usually steer clear of him, almost as if he was a victim of a disease or something. What was the cause of this? His sister, who had been assisted by a certain blonde boy they were friends with since they were 2, had told their classmates of Izuku's quirkless status, which resulted in various different reactions. Some opted to make fun of him, calling him names like Deku or Freak, while others merely decided to avoid him, thinking that he could cause them to be quirkless on contact. The usual childhood rumors. Though, Izuku didn't seem to care. Wearing a bright red hoodie and black shorts and shoes, the boy relaxed underneath a small tree at the yard of the kindergarten, reading a comic book he had collected from his mother's bookshelf. It had apparently belonged to his grandfather, who he was unable to meet, as the man had died sometime after his birth as a result of a heart attack. The comic itself wasn't really something a child should be reading. A story of devils and people who hunt them, while the main character could turn themselves into a devil. It was something Izuku had surprisingly found enjoyable to read despite his age. However, his reading time would soon be interrupted when his sister would suddenly approach him, along with the blonde-haired boy, called Katsuki Bakugo. Can I help you? Izuku asked the pair. Some kids were saying you wanted to be a hero. Was that true? Izuku took her words and began to think about it. For a long time, he had been exposed to hero society and the glamour that it brought, likely as a result of things such as TV and other things like that. Naturally, he answered as such. Yeah, I want to be a hero. I want to be like those cool-looking heroes on TV, why do you ask? Looking up at his sister, he saw only an upset expression. Her eyes filled with nothing but anger, as she begun to glow. Getting up from the ground, Izuku begun to approach her. Izumi? What's wrong? He asked her. This was met with her showing him to the ground, causing him to look at her in confusion. You stupid head, you think someone like you could be a hero? She yelled. Well, you can't because you don't have a quirk. Someone like you can't possibly be a hero. You're weak, you're pathetic. Someone like you would only be useless if you were a hero, so don't. Yeah, Deku. Just admit it. You'd only get in the way. Katsuki followed up. So quit while you're ahead. Otherwise we'll have to teach you a lesson. The two began to walk away from him, leaving him confused by the sudden interaction. Of course the two had arguments in the past, but nothing as severe as this. But Izuku, despite trying his best attempts to amend the relationship between him and his sister, it would always fall flat, with his sister either insulting him or her and Katsuki attacking him, much to his surprise. Eventually, after many attempts of trying to amend their relationship, he saw no reason to continue, and chose to keep to himself, avoiding as much contact with her as possible. After many years, we eventually see our white curly-haired protagonist at Aldera Junior High School, where he had some significant changes to his appearance over the years. For some reason, he always felt irritation in his eyes. While doctors tried their best to understand the circumstances, they found no issue in his eyesight. No diseases, no cataracts, nothing. In fact, they found that his eyesight was more than fine, but better. But the near-perfect eyesight had caused him to feel pain in his head, causing him some discomfort over the years. To remedy this, the school had allowed him to wear nearly pitch-black sunglasses, causing his classmates to believe he had merely gone blind despite the information telling the opposite. All right, class, settle down. The teacher spoke out loud. Right now, because you're all third years, you need to think carefully about what you guys want to do with your futures. However, instead of keeping up the facade, the teacher began to smile with a big grin on his face as he tossed the papers in the air. Who am I kidding? I know you all want to become heroes. Izuku had found it quite annoying that his peers were acting like children because of the fact they wanted to become heroes. Then again, it's not like he was an adult, so he couldn't really talk badly about them. Some had decent quirks to become proper pro heroes, while others were less than qualified for the role, eyeing a certain student with the ability to stretch out his eyeballs. But he kept these comments to himself, as he continued to read a comic book about a guy who could turn into a monster called a kaiju. Hey teach, don't lump us with this bunch of losers. A now 14-year-old Katsuki yelled out. Unlike them, Izumi and I are the real deal, but these guys will be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister. In response to this, the other students of his class began to holler out various different complaints at the boy, but he did not care. He knew he had the power to back it up. His explosion quirk made him pretty famous in terms of potential and power. Let's go. I'll take you all on. Well, you two do have some impressive test results. Maybe you both will get into UA High. Gossip amongst the class began to fester, as each of them were gasping at the fact both were attempting to get into UA High School, despite the 0.2% acceptance rate. He loved the attention and made it his mission to show off to his weak classmates. Of course, and that's exactly why it's the only place worthy of us. We aced all of the mock tests. We're the only ones at this school who stands a chance of getting in. We'll end up more popular than All Might himself and be the richest heroes of all time. Katsuki began to laugh, his ego having been inflated as a result of the gossip. But things quickly returned to normal when the teacher picked up the papers off the floor and gave them out to the students. After school, Izuku had returned home like normal, quickly heading to his room and reading his comic in peace. He had since childhood gathered a large collection of stories that he had found quite interesting, including some comics from the West, with superheroes far from what had been seen in real life. Welp, guess I have to wait until the next volume comes out, he said to himself. While going through his bookshelf full of textbooks for school and comics, he heard the sounds of his father's voice, muffled by the separation of the rooms. He exited his room and began slowly heading down the stairs, only to find his sister and his father standing over her. Izumi, I've asked you here because I need your help. You want my help? Yes. As you know, my job has always been a secret to you and your brother. Well, there's a reason for that. For you see, I'm actually All Might. Izuku, having heard those words, merely covers his mouth, trying not to make a single sound, all while his mind is flooded with an assortment of questions, while his sister, all she could do was laugh slightly. Okay, Dad, that's a funny joke, but no. There's no way you could be All Might. You aren't even you. But before she could finish her sentence, a large cloud of smoke covers the room, with an overwhelmingly large shadow casting over her as a result of the now setting sun. There's no way. That's right, Izumi, I am here. All Might tells her. Whoa, holy moly, you're actually All Might. AHHAHA, that's right. All this time, while your father has been going to work and not saying anything to you, I have been fighting crime. As the symbol of peace, the one who secures the safety of this world, All Might HJ. But as he goes to finish his laugh, he suddenly reverts back to his skinny state, coughing up vital fluids in the process. Holy moly, what happened? Well, Izumi, that is the reason why I wanted to come talk to you, and why I need you to take everything I'm about to tell you seriously. Yes, she said, as she readjusted herself. Tashinori's eyes met hers, and gave off an unsettling feeling in her chest as he began to speak. The reason why I have chosen to reveal myself to you is because I'm running out of time. Izumi's eyes widened in worry at this information, quickly changing her tone as soon as she heard this. What? You see, in one of my earlier fights 5 years ago, I got in a bit of an accident, he says as he lifts up his shirt. The wound in question horrifies Izumi, as she sees scars and large flesh wound. Pretty gross, right? This injury basically destroyed my respiratory system and lost most of my stomach. Unfortunately for me, it can't be fixed, even by the best doctors. Because of this, I can only do 3 hours of hero work per day. Only 3 hours. Who did this to you? Was it that monster toxic chainsaw? Wow, you know your stuff, Izumi, but no. Most of the world has never heard about this fight, and for good reason too. Society would tear itself apart if they found out the symbol of peace was injured to this degree. Which is why, in order to continue the legend of the symbol of peace, I made a decision. To pass on my quirk to someone I deem worthy. Someone you deem worthy? Yes. I've had many candidates recommended to me by some people I knew in my past. But I came to the decision to give it to someone I believe could do some good with it, and I want you to help me train them. Hold on, train them? Yes. There's a girl who currently resides on the technological paradise known as Island. The daughter of a friend of mine who recently passed due to an illness. I made a promise to him that I would protect his daughter as if they were my own child, and I believe with this power I want to give her, and her skill with designing tech, that she could do some genuine good in the world. While I would train her, I simply don't have the means of helping her use it. That's where you come in. Whoa. Time out, what do you mean power I want to give her? That doesn't make any sense. You can't just pass on a quirk. How is that even possible? Well, you deserve to know the details, considering you're going to be helping me. Journalists and other heroes always guess my quirk as super strength or some kind of invulnerability. When people ask in interviews, I try to change the subject to dodge the question. That's because the world needs to believe that its symbol of peace is a natural born hero like anyone else. But there is nothing natural about this power. I wasn't born with this power. It was a sacred torch passed on to me by my predecessor. This quirk of mine, the true name of it is called One for All. One for All? Izumi muttered. Yes, one person improves the power, then hands it off to another person. It continues to grow as it's passed along. It is this cultivated power that allows me to save the people who need my help. That is the truth behind my strength. I see. But wait. Before choosing this girl for my island, why not choose Izuku? I mean, he's quirkless, and he's always wanted to be a hero for so long. So why not a more worthy person to hold it than him? Toshinori ponders on these words for a short time in reality, but a long time in his mind. Yes, Izuku could be a potential vessel of One for All, but something was holding back All Might from agreeing with this decision. Perhaps it was because he had non-intentionally strained his relationship with his son and was too ashamed to try and repair it. Even he didn't know. All he could do was answer honestly. The level of responsibility needed to use this power would be too much for him to handle. Izuku let out silently. I know it's selfish of me to deny him of his dream. I'm already haunted by the thought of it as it is. But not once have I seen him even put in any effort to even try and achieve his dream. That is why I believe the best path for this quirk is to give it to Melissa and have you help her. I see. Then I will help you and this Melissa girl, father. Good. Then I'll need to talk to your school. If I can approve them of allowing you to go to online school, then we can leave for Island by next week. Okay. Izuku, seeing no reason to continue to eavesdrop, walks over to his room, carefully shutting the door behind him, and he plopped himself on his desk chair, staring aimlessly down it. As he stared down at the career sheet his teacher gave him with a calculating glare, he began to talk to himself, a habit he had developed as a result of the loneliness he had dealt with at school. Father Izumi Bakugo, despite everyone doubting me, all your words collectively hurt me the most. Izuku muttered to himself. A thought popped up in his mind as he continued to stare at the paper. A motivation that he himself had not felt in a long time, grabbing a nearby pencil. Ever since I started junior high, I always wanted to go someday. The hero school All Might went when he was my age. But even if I go, I wouldn't be going down my own path. I would simply still be in his and my sister's shadow, which is why this is the road I must walk. He began to write down on the career sheet, etching into the paper only one answer: to be a hero, and what he answered underneath the question how to reach said goal. He etched in one singular word: Shiketsu. Shortly after the event that had set Izuku on this new path, we find ourselves at the airport a week later, where we see Inko saying her goodbyes to her husband and daughter, who had managed to convince the school to allow Izumi to study online. Are you sure you don't want to take Izuku with you? Inko asked her husband. Surely he would be. Unfortunately, I cannot. Toshinori told her. This is something only Izumi can help me with. Besides, I have no doubt Izuku will be fine. Well, just make sure you call us occasionally, okay? You got it, honey. The two board the plane and begin to make their flight to Island, while Inko heads back to her car and drives to work, hoping that things run smoothly for her, unlike many other days in the office. As for Izuku, we see him at school, handing off his career form to his teacher after the class had been dismissed for the day. Shiketsu, huh? A very good choice, Yagi. I heard they have an excellent general studies program. Though that does beg the question, why go all the way west for Shiketsu? Wouldn't it be easier for you to go into the UA general course? The teacher asked him. Well, sir, I just find that this will be a much more comfortable avenue for me. I see. Well then, best of luck to you. Thank you, sir. After exiting the classroom, he begins to make his way home, seeing several things go by him. From newly debuting heroes showing off their skills to the public, to groups of friends laughing amongst themselves at jokes he did not understand. Though what annoyed him the most during his walk home was the large number of invisible creatures that kept hissing at him. So annoying. He muttered to himself. Geez, it's bad enough that I'm the only one that can see you creatures. But it's worse when you start hissing at me like feral cats. Eventually, he makes it home, heading to the fridge and grabbing a small apple before heading to his room. That is, until his mother reaches the top of the stairs having just returned home from work. Izuku, sweetie. Oh, hey, Mom. What's up? Well, I know I haven't been home a lot these past few days, but I wanted to ask if you wanted to go out to barbecue. Barbecue? Why barbecue? And why so suddenly? Well, I figured since your father and sister won't be around for a while, I figured we could just enjoy ourselves a bit. I see. Then I'll go get myself ready. After what felt like a couple of hours, the mother and son get themselves seated at a nearby booth in front of a grill and began cooking various assortments of meat on top of it, from pork to beef, and even enjoying some bowls of udon. Wow, I won't lie, Mom. This has been the best dinner outing ever. The flavors of all this food. It really is mouth-watering. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Izuku. As Izuku began to dig in on more slabs of beef, Inko grabbed something out the bag she had been carrying besides her purse. The contents inside the bag was a moderately small box with an envelope taped on top. Mom, what is this? Well, there was another reason for us coming out here. Izuku looked at her with a puzzled expression on his face. Another reason? Yes. It was then that things began to click, when he suddenly was brought into his mother's warming embrace. A hug that had seemingly been waiting to happen. Happy birthday, son. Izuku's eyes widened. From everything at school that had been happening, from assignments to studying for the high school entrance exams, he had completely forgotten that today was his birthday. Wow, I'm sorry. I completely forgot about it. It's all right, son. I tend to forget my birthday as well. Handing her son the small box, she began to place the last slabs of pork on her plate before looking back at her son. Before your grandfather died, he wanted to give this to you when you were all grown up. My grandfather? Your dad? Yes. He always had heart problems and knew he wouldn't be able to see you become a fine young man. So he entrusted this to me and told me to give it to you on your 15th birthday. What's inside, even I'm not sure. It's been kept like this for years. And now that you're 15, I believe it is time to give this to you. I see. You don't have to open it up now. I'm sure you'd want to find out what's inside in a more private setting. That would be great. After finishing up the last bits of their meal and heading home by car, Izuku entered the home, placing his shoes by the door before turning to his mother. Hey, Mom. Yes, sweetie? Inko answered. She was soon met with a tight hug, with Izuku, now bearing a more happy expression, smiling at her. Thank you for everything. You're the best mother someone like me could have. She smiled at this comment, giving Izuku an embrace on the cheek before making her way to her room, tired after a long day of work and the large amounts of food she had just eaten. Izuku carried the box over to his room, placing it carefully at his desk as he looked at it with curiosity. Something about this all felt too strange. Exactly what kind of gift did his grandfather give him that he believed would be good for him, despite having been dead for nearly 14 years? Only he could figure that out, as he ripped off the letter from its top and began to read the contents inside. To my dearest grandson, the letter began. If you're reading this, that means you have reached the age of 15 and are now ready to inherit this gift. Man, this guy's handwriting is hard to read. Izuku thought to himself. When I first laid eyes on you, something in my head clicked as I realized you bore the appearance of our powerful ancestor. Okay, what's this guy even going on about? Izuku thought to himself. As he continued to read the contents of the letter, keywords began to be made noticeable to the boy. Words like curses and technique had stuck into Izuku's mind as he tried to make sense of what his grandfather had written. I have no doubt any of this sounds strange to you. Believe me, I was confused as well. But should my assumption of you be correct, I have no doubt the gifts inside this box will help elevate you to a level beyond superhuman. The letter continued. As the last son of the Gojo clan, I hope these gifts help you grow strong. Sincerely, Hisashi Midoriya. Upon finishing the letter, Izuku looked down at it with more confusion than before. Gojo clan? The hell is that? He thought to himself. Something about the meaning behind elevate you to a level beyond superhuman festered in Izuku's mind. Did his grandfather having some sort of toxin that could make him stronger? Impossible. What kind of toxin would exist that could help a quirkless boy like Izuku grow strong? Nevertheless, he opened the box to see a rather odd assortment of items. Firstly, a stack of books that looked decrepit in condition, with some pages being slightly yellow and brown, and next to it, laid a stuffed bear. The stuffed bear in question wore a pair of punching gloves that were seemingly stitched onto its arms, and underneath it, a small pile of old movies that had not seen the light in ages. Huh. The hell kind of movies are these? Lord of the Rings, Speed, Die Hard, and what language even is this? French? While holding the bear in his hands, he seemingly felt a very powerful punch hit him at the left side of his face, knocking him to the ground. Izuku, seeing the bear after a short recovery period, begins to slightly freak out at this. What the hell? Did that stuffed bear just punch me? How? Why? Getting up from the floor, he began digging through the box, grabbing out the various movies and the 2 books that were contained inside, eventually finding a slip of paper that was somewhat maintained. What the? A how-to guide on cursed energy? The hell is that? He began reading the contents of the piece of paper, learning about the purpose of the bear that had just struck his face and why the movies were kept underneath it, before immediately beginning to read one of the 2 books stored inside, Documentation of the Gojo Clan and the Limitless Technique. What he had found inside was quite extraordinary in comparison to the textbooks his teachers had gotten his family to purchase. The intricate history of this Gojo clan was extraordinary, and the technique it described was even more complex. The ability to bring the concept of infinity into reality and be able to manipulate and distort space at will as a result. How could such power not have been made public knowledge? He read through the book with such keen interest, he ended up reading through the whole book faster than ever thought he could. Wow, that was bizarre. Grandpa thinks I can do something like that, all because I have white hair and blue eyes? There are tons of people with those features, so why me in particular? Looking back at the instruction guide on how to control cursed energy, he began to think to himself, before grabbing one of the movies and the stuffed bear off the ground. So, you're supposed to be Tsukamoto, a training tool used to help control this cursed energy the book had written in. Well, Grandpa gave this box to me for a reason. Unless he went out of his way to be petty before he died, I don't see any reason not to take his word. And so he began to follow the instructions on the paper in question, watching the various movies that were provided all while receiving several punches to the face as a result, Tsukamoto not receiving a constant flow of cursed energy. Days and days of doing this process over and over again had left the boy with some pretty serious injuries, causing many around him during school and at home to question what had been happening to him. Even Katsuki of all people was concerned, though this was mainly because he didn't want anyone else to beat him up except him. Finally, after a long couple of weeks' worth of training, he had finally gotten a gasp of the concept of cursed energy, being able to see the aura for himself once he had chosen to activate it. Whoa, this feeling. It's so surreal. So this is my cursed energy, huh? Suddenly I feel like I can do anything, he muttered to himself. Feeling the cursed energy course through his body, he felt a sense of pride in his accomplishment, a grin slowly appearing on his face, before looking back at the cursed corpse known as Tsukamoto. I doubt using this method will help increase my control of cursed energy, but I thank you for your help, despite all those punches you hit me with. The cursed corpse, feeling no cursed energy, attempts to punch Izuku once more, but the boy is able to catch the punch, not wanting to have another bruise. Not this time. Putting the bear on his desk and the movies back into the box, Izuku would once again go through the book documentation of the Gojo clan and the Limitless Technique, reading past the history section and heading straight to the beginning parts of the technique. Chapter 3. Infinity. Infinity, the base state of the Limitless, that grants its user the ability to stop or slow things down by taking the finite amount of space between the 2 subjects and dividing it an infinite amount of times. Izuku read. Whoa, holy moly, that sounds rather busted in a way. He continued to read through its contents, attempting to find any information on how exactly to cast this infinity, which to his surprise, was much simpler than he thought. Perhaps there is another use for you yet, Tsukamoto. Grabbing the bear once more, he attempts to utilize the knowledge in his mind about how to apply infinity, with some failure, as the bear hit him what felt like 50 times before making some progress. Izuku opens his eyes to see the bear's fist slowed down significantly, with the boy smiling in delight. Yes, it worked, Izuku said out loud. I finally managed to use infinity. However, what he did notice about the use of infinity was that if he prolonged its use, he found that his brain would begin to heat up unnaturally, with his current record of use being that of 1 minute. Wow, that technique really fried my brain a bit. I guess I really need to train it up a bit, see if I can use it a lot longer without worrying about my brain being fried. As time went on, he continued to learn about the intricate applications behind the limitless technique, reading about every known extension technique that was ever documented by those who utilized it, or those who have witnessed it. Either way, it became very clear to Izuku that with each passing day, he grew stronger, a lot stronger. But while he was doing excellent in learning the uses of cursed energy, it was obvious to him that he needed to be not only stronger in power, but also physically. He began to formulate a workout plan over the next few days, while still learning the various techniques contained in the book. Okay, so I have about 9 months, or 273 days before the entrance exam to Shiketsu's hero course. Izuku thought to himself, if I take into account a rest period of 2 days in between my workouts, then that means I have about 195 days of training. Also, I'll need to make sure I'm hitting every muscle group, which means I need to pay attention to the type of work I'm doing every day. I could start sneaking in extra workouts and lifting weights on my own, I suppose. That would help me focus my workouts and isolate specific muscles. But it'll cost me time. Lots of it. I'll have to cut back on the hours of sleep, but this could help me a little bit more. Excuse me, Yagi. The teacher called out. Oh, yes, sir? Are you okay? You were rambling about something just now. Oh, it's nothing, sir, really. I guess I just spaced out and started yapping for no reason. I see, we'll make sure you pay attention. Izuku, feeling slightly embarrassed, leans his head into his textbook, hoping to avoid the looks of his peers. Geez, I forgot I was in class. I'll also have to take into account school as well. What a pain. While the students around him began to chuckle at him, calling him things like idiot or delusional, Katsuki merely stared at him, not even amused, just annoyed. Eventually, the school day ended, and we see Izuku walking home from school, all while looking at some photos on his phone, having taken pictures of the book about the Gojo clan and the limitless technique. Okay, Chapter 4, Curse Technique Lapse, Blue. An extension technique that is achieved when a user of the limitless technique greatly amplifies the amount of poured into the technique, bringing the concepts of negative numbers and negative distance into reality. This technique forces real space to compensate and fill in the area by drawing everything toward the impossibility, creating a strong force of attraction, similar to a powerful magnet. He read out, Geez, just how busted is this stuff? Deku, someone called out. But Izuku refused to answer. Deku, they called out once more. But Izuku still refused to answer. Yagi. Izuku eventually turned his head to meet the gaze of Katsuki, who had an annoyed expression on his face. Oh, hey Bakugo. What's going on? Izuku answered. Izuku didn't know why Katsuki was starting conversation with him after all this time. But regardless, he didn't try to end it. What the hell are you doing? Huh. Forgive me, but I'm not sure what you mean. Izuku answered. Everything that's been going on with you lately. All those bruises, that things you were muttering in class. Just what exactly is going on in that head of yours, Deku? Izuku didn't really appreciate him using the name Deku, but regardless, he merely answered his question with a lie. Oh, that? I recently started training at a boxing gym, and the guy I was fighting gave me a couple of clean hits to my face. As for what I was muttering about, I was just thinking of the most effective way to train. Katsuki, not really keen on asking about the matter anymore, chose to walk away from the boy. No matter how hard you train, you're still just gonna be a quirkless loser. As Katsuki left, appearing out of sight, Izuku let out a loud sigh, thankful that Katsuki wasn't really too aware that he had just been lied to. All right, I have 9 months to train. Better hope that this training pays off. And so, the next 9 months had gone just as fast as they came. Izuku, using the makeshift training method he came up with, having taken inspiration from various pieces of media, had successfully conditioned his body to be in good condition for the upcoming exam. While he wasn't really too familiar with the Shiketsu exam parameters, if it was anything similar to UA's, he wouldn't have a problem. As for his training with his curse technique, he had learned how to utilize the technique lapse, blue, in a manner of a few weeks. While it did take a while to use the technique, he was quickly able to understand the technique on an atomic level, mostly due to his eyes, which he had learned was a special ability commonly referred to as the 6 eyes. Right now, he was having dinner with his mother, like most of the nights during these past 10 months. Izuku, for what it's worth, had enjoyed these 10 months, learning about the history of a family clan he never knew existed or never knew he was a part of, learning their technique, and growing strong, possibly even stronger than most of the top 100 heroes. But reality suddenly hit him when he realized what was happening tomorrow, the return of his father and sister. Izuku? Is something wrong? His mother asked him. No, it's fine. I just realized father and Izumi were coming home. He continued to eat the food on his plate, while Inko looked at him with worry. I know your relationship with them isn't the best, but I want you to know that I'm proud of you, son. No matter what path you choose in life, just remember that I will always be proud of you. Izuku felt happy upon hearing this. Even though he never told his mother about what school he was planning on going to, it made him happy that when he did show the world he became a hero, that his mother would be proud of him for it. Though, seeing his mother let out tears of joy, it made him sad that he had to leave her. Thanks, Mom. Thank you for everything. I'll make you proud. The light of the sun had begun burning brightly, signifying the start of the new day. Inko and Izuku Yagi, at around 7 in the morning, had gotten changed into their clothes and were waiting at a bustling airport, looking for any sign of Tashinori and Izumi. People of various walks of life either boarded the planes to their international destination or were returning to see loved ones who missed them deeply. Eventually, due to Tashinori's stature of 7 feet and 3 inches, the pair were quickly able to find them amongst the crowd. Inko, he yells out while waving. Toshi, Inko yells back. The two come into view as Inko slowly approaches them, giving each of them a hug. I'm glad you two are back, safely, she tells the two. So are we, honey, Tashinori tells her. While the two gave their embrace to Inko, Izuku merely looked away, not really too excited by their return. If he were to be honest, he felt a sense of freedom since those two were gone for so long. But regardless, he had to put up with it. Uncle Toshi, a female voice, calls out. Passing through the crowd, we see a blonde-haired girl, wearing a large set of glasses, make her way to them, while accidentally bumping into some people with her now physically toned body. Melissa, I was wondering where you ran off to. Yeah, I just had to figure out where the bathroom was. I won't lie, I kind of got confused, what with the whole culture shock in that. Izuku and Inko, seeing the American girl in front of them, react in slight embarrassment. Oh, Toshi, who is this nice lady? Oh, right. I forgot to introduce you to her. Inko, Izuku, this is Melissa Shield. Hey, you guys, says in slightly broken Japanese. Melissa here is the daughter of an old friend of mine who sadly passed. She'll be staying with us for a while. I'm so glad to meet you two. Thank you for having me. Inko, thinking she couldn't hear her right due to the broken Japanese she was hearing, merely bows her head in respect, in an attempt to not make a big deal out of it. Izuku, on the other hand, merely looked around the airport, seeing a large sum of cursed spirits roam throughout the large passageways. Man, there are really a large number of them here. Izuku thought to himself. Hopefully they don't cause trouble. After entering the car and driving out of the airport, we see Melissa looking out the window, all wide-eyed, as she admires the scenery of the many places they pass by. Izuku, however, continued to silently stare at his phone, scrolling through his music player app to find the best song to drift asleep to. Wow, this is so cool, Melissa said in broken Japanese. This city looks wonderful. Yeah, but it's better to see it at night. Izumi tells her. The lights definitely make this place a lot better in my opinion. While Izuku was attempting to drift off to sleep, he felt his body slightly shake, as Melissa kept nudging his shoulder. Yes, Izuku answered. So Izuku, right? What's it like living to the number? But before she could blab about the secret, Izumi quickly stops her, informing her in the very little English she knew that Izuku had not been told of Tashinori's secret. Understanding this, she quickly changed her question to the best of her ability. So, Izuku, are there any cool places here you like to go to? But Izuku, despite Melissa's broken Japanese, knew what she was going to ask him originally, choosing to feign ignorance and merely answer accordingly. Well, I like going to places like the bookstore. They always have a good catalog of comics for me to read. Some are average at best, but there are always those that truly showcase their skill in art and storytelling. I see. My dad was a fan of comic too. Maybe I can show his personal collection one day. Despite his interest being slightly piqued, he chose not to inquire about this, and chose to go back to sleep. Now, Izumi. Tomorrow is a big day for the two of you. Particularly for you, Izumi. All the training you have undergone at this point will all be tested in this exam tomorrow. I see. Well, don't worry, Dad. I will make sure to go beyond so I can get in. That's the spirit, Izumi. Now, Melissa, we have a guest room in the house you can stay in, so you don't have to worry about not having a place to sleep. Thanks, Uncle Toshi. After a lengthy car ride back home, we see Izuku enter the house and head to his room, closing the door behind him as he continued to pack a small bag of things in preparation for the Shiketsu exam. Okay, toothbrush, check. Toothpaste, check. Change of clothes, check. Some money for food, check. Okay, looks like I have everything I need for the exam. His bedroom door suddenly opens, with him turning to see his father, standing outside. Izuku, may I please talk to you for a second? Sure. What's up? Izuku responded. Your mother told me that you were heading down west tomorrow. May I ask why? Well, I read online that there was a school west of Japan that had an excellent reviews from parents and students alike. I figured I should give it a shot. I mean, most of the high schools in this area aren't exactly the best in academic status. But to go all the way west to this school, are sure that's a good idea? UA has an excellent general studies program, and it's far closer to home than the school you plan on going to. Father, I appreciate the sentiment, but I've already decided to try out for this school. Besides, a quirkless nobody like me doesn't deserve to go there, even if it's only general studies. Toshinori looks down at the ground, feeling a wave of guilt wash over him upon hearing those words. Despite having not connected with his son on a deep level, it's not like he hated him or was disappointed in how he was. He too was quirkless when he was young, but unlike Izuku, he had it arguably easier despite having both of his parents die at a young age. Being quirkless was a lot more commonplace than it was now, and his son was like this because of him. I see. Then I'll drop you off to the train station tomorrow morning, he said, closing the door behind him. As he walks through the halls, he grips onto his plain white shirt in disgust, but not to anyone around him, only to himself. He hated that just because his son bore a slight resemblance to his biggest adversary that he decided to not raise him like he should have as his father. But there was currently nothing he could do, nothing he could say. Apologizing would only feel like he was making an insult to the years he decided to not raise Izuku. Overall, he couldn't do anything. What kind of a father am I? He muttered to himself. After enjoying Inko's cooking and heading to bed for a long sleep, Izuku wakes up and, being driven by his father, makes it to the train station, about to board the train taking him to his destination, Kyoto. Inko tightly hugs Izuku as he begins to board the train, its doors closing as the train begins to move, before moving away from them in incredible speeds. And now I'm off, Izuku comments to himself. The train ride lasted many hours, with Izuku making several stops at different locations on the way. While it was a lengthy ride, it did not take long before Izuku arrived at Kyoto. Though, to say he was shocked at the difference between his hometown and here was an understatement. After walking around the streets of Kyoto, he finds himself a hotel to temporarily stay at, tosses his small bag onto the single-sized mattress, before sitting at the desk and continuing to read his book. Why was he staying at a hotel? Due to the set times of the Hero Course entrance exam, that being 8 in the morning, he had to make necessary preparations to ensure he would get to the exam on time. While he could have just woken up early and took the train then, he felt it better to get the necessary sleep to ensure maximum performance. As he continued to read the book, he tried to find something in Chapter 3, Infinity, that could help him utilize the technique without any strain to his brain, or some method he could use to allow him to use it for longer periods of time. Something as broken as an invisible barrier would be very useful in combat situations. But something caught his eye while he was searching through the pages of the book. An obscure chapter that was contained in between the chapter titles Chapter 5, Maximum Cursed Energy Output, blue, and Chapter 7, Hollow Technique, purple. Chapter 6, Cursed Technique Reversal, red. He begun. This technique is the Cursed Technique Reversal of Limitless. By utilizing the positive energy generated from a reverse curse technique, it reverses the effect of the strengthened Limitless, producing a strong repelling effect rather than an attracting one. Hold on, there's a reverse curse technique now? Just how many techniques do I have to learn? Using what the book spoke about the reverse curse technique, Izuku attempted to replicate the method of creating positive energy. The method described by the original author was that by multiplying negative energy with negative energy, it would result in the creation of positive energy, and therefore, can be used for various purposes, such as healing and creating an attack different from blue. But despite it sounding simple on paper, Izuku found it difficult to even produce the positive energy, which frustrated him greatly. Damn it! Why can't I do it? He yelled to himself. Why is it that something like this is so hard to perform? Laying on the bed, he stares up aimlessly at the ceiling, the rainfall pouring violently outside. So much for a sunny day. But even still, there has to be a way for me to create that positive energy. If I can heal my brain to stop it from frying, there's no telling what I'll be capable of. Over the next many hours, and including some time in the night, he continued to try and produce the positive energy, but to no avail, eventually going out of the hotel room to buy some snacks to eat for dinner that night before heading to sleep. Whatever, even if I couldn't figure out that reverse curse technique, I should focus on passing this exam. Otherwise, I'll just be nothing but a failure. After a lengthy night's sleep, the sun arises from the horizon and we see Izuku, now wearing his school uniform, approach the entrance to Shiketsu's main building. His eyes widened upon seeing its size up close. Wow, holy moly. This place is huge. Izuku comments. If Shiketsu's this big, I wonder how big UA is in comparison. He begins to hear the sounds of loud footsteps approaching him quickly, before turning his head to see a large young man 6'3" in height nearly crash into him. But Izuku merely stepped to the side as he rushed past. Oh no, I gotta get inside before I'm late, the boy yells out. Izuku merely looks on in confusion at the sight of the boy sprinting inside. Just who the hell is that guy? And hold on, did he say late? After checking his watch, he begins to slightly freak out, also running into the main building. I thought everything was fine, so I decided to take my time getting here. Just great. After some time getting sorted into a desk, alone with hundreds of other applicants, eventually, the projection screen above each room of students displays a video of a nameless principal, his hair purple in color, and his eyes showing fierce stoicism. Greetings, students. Welcome to the Shiketsu High School entrance exams. The principal spoke. In this exam, everything you have studied and trained for will be tested here, and will decide whether you lot should be chosen to enter the gates of this academy. Izuku stares up at the video of the principal from his desk, his expression unchanging. Now then, for the exam outline. There are 3 parts each of you will participate in. The first part is a written test, filled with various different scenarios that will test your judgment as a hypothetical hero. The second part is a physical assessment test. This is where your physical training will come in handy. Keep in mind, some of you will be given exceptions depending on your quirks. Oh, I see. So it's pretty much just a regular assessment. I have nothing to worry about then. Izuku thought to himself. The last part is critical to your entry here. In particular to the hero course examinees, each of you will participate in an interview that will assess you based on a number of factors. Although each of the parts is important, the interview is the most important. With that out of the way, I wish each and every one of you good luck on the exam, he said in a sinister tone. Man, talk about creepy. Seriously, that guy sounds like some sort of final boss or something. Izuku thought to himself. And so, the exams began without a second to waste. Izuku, having prepared for some time, would carefully go through each question on the test, answering it to the best of his ability, taking into account various different factors that could influence the situation. As for the physical portion, Izuku went through each of the exercises without any issue. Finally, there was the interview, where Izuku sat in a room by himself, rubbing his arms in agitation as the door began to open. The interviewer in question had seafoam green hair, with an orange bandana wrapped around her head, while also wearing some formal attire and holding a clipboard in her hand. You must be Izuku Yagi, correct? That's correct, ma'am. It's nice to meet you. The interviewer sits on a chair opposite of the teen, before stretching her arms and legs. All right, kid, here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, just some basic stuff, and you're going to give me honest answers. Sound simple? I guess. Great. Then let's get started. The questions that the interviewer asked him were fairly simple in difficulty, ranging from questions like how to properly treat civilians while on patrol, or how to properly arrest a criminal during an arrest. Something Izuku had no real trouble with. I must say, Mr. Yagi, these are really good answers you're giving. Well, I'm sure you say that to all the examinees here. Well, that is partially true, but then again, I mostly say that to put people at ease. I see. All right, last question, kiddo. What is your reason for becoming a hero? What? Izuku muttered. Well, many heroes in this industry often have a reason for becoming heroes. A motivation, if you will. Without a motivation, what's the point in even entering the hero course, am I right? So tell me, what is your reason for becoming a hero? Izuku ponders this question in his mind many times over. Why did he want to be a hero? Sure, people have asked him if he wanted to be a hero, but why he wanted to be one was something he hadn't thought about before up until now. To wear fancy costumes? No, that was stupid. To get fame and money? Well, stuff like that certainly helps. But to Izuku, those things paled in comparison to a reason he hadn't thought about in a long time. A quote he had remembered in the depths of his heart from a comic he had read as a child. A quote that a certain red and blue hero had used many times before. Izuku stares down at the metal desk, his hands gripping tightly, as the interviewer looked at him. There are various reasons why one would want to become a hero. He began. Money, fame, influence. These things are usually why people want to become heroes. A very insightful analysis, Mr. Yagi. But that doesn't answer my K. But to answer your question, ma'am, while those things are important, my reason for pursuing a career in heroics is because I believe I have an obligation to use this power to save the lives of those who can't save themselves. The examiner stared at the young man's eyes. The conviction, the determination being displayed them was overwhelming to say. Nevertheless, the examiner kept his cool. If that isn't a good enough reason, then there's no need to send me a letter saying you've denied my entry. 'Cause I will see no reason to attend if that is the case. After a few minutes of silence, the examiner closed her notepad and leaned forward on his chair, staring the boy down. Well, Mr. Yagi, it seems you have a very noble answer indeed. But you won't have to worry about us not admitting you to this school. Huh. Here at Shiketsu, the most important thing we teach young aspiring heroes such as yourselves is to value their obligation as heroes. Aspirations such as money and fame aren't bad things, but the brightest stars are the ones that burn the brightest. And with a reason like that, I can tell you're going to go far on this path, kid. Izuku rubs the back of his head, before smiling, trying his best to remain focused. Well, thank you, Mississippi. I honestly thought I was saying something stupid for a second. Please, there's no need to be embarrassed, young man. Now, if this was UA, normally what happens is that the school principal sends out letters to all participants and notifies them if they passed or not. But things work differently here. As Izuku opens his eyes, he sees the examiner put her hand out, all while giving him a welcoming smile. Congrats, Mr. Yagi, you passed. Welcome to Shiketsu, she tells him. Izuku puts his hand out, clasping hands with the examiner, and begins to shake it. Thank you for having me attend this school, Izuku said with a determined smile on his face. High school, an awkward time in any young man or woman's life. Those who have gone through it know the perilous struggles every student faces when in this phase of life. Though for our white curly-haired protagonist, this is only the beginning of his journey through high school, as we see him begrudgingly stand beside his sister for one last photo in front of Aldera Junior High, 2 weeks after the exam. Now say cheese, Inko says to them. Cheese, the two say in a sour tone. After taking the picture, Inko can't help but grow emotional at the sight of her children finally graduating junior high and are now entering the next stage of their lives, and rushes in to give the two a group hug. I just can't believe my babies are entering high school, she says as tears begin to leak out. Mum, your tears, they're getting onto my uniform, Izumi says in a panic. Oh, sorry about that. But I can't help but cry. To see my two lovely children grow up, it brings a mother to tears. Hey now, Inko, there's no need to cry. It's just a part of growing up, that's all, Toshinori tells her while trying to comfort her. Yeah, that's all it is. Izuku begins. And besides, I'll still come and visit during my off time, so there's no need to worry. I'll make sure of it that I come down as soon as I can. The tears of joy slowly continue to stream down her face as the family begin to make their way to the car and drop of Izuku at the train station. All right, I'll be going now. I'll do my best to make you proud, Mom, he says to her as he boards the train. Izuku, make you eat right. Try not to spend too much money at once, and please make sure you keep up your studies. I will, Mom. As he finally boards the train, footsteps begin to approach. Turning his head back, he sees his father standing before him, his stature looming over him. Hey Dad, is there something I can help you with? Toshinori doesn't say a word to him immediately, his lips seemingly sewn shut, unable to say anything at first. That is, until Toshinori raises his head, making eye contact with Izuku with his own pair of shiny light blue eyes. Izuku, no matter what happens, I want you to know, I will always be proud of you, he tells him. Izuku felt strange. It was the first time in his life that his father had said he was proud of him, and yet despite holding no real affection for his father, his spirit quivered. He had no way of returning the affection his father tried to give him, only looking down at the ground, struggling to come to terms with things. But one thing he was able to do, in that moment in time, was give his father a thumbs up as the train doors began to close. Izuku rides the train, once again seeing the sights he saw 2 weeks ago. Eventually, after boarding off the train and making his way to the front of the school, he places of his Shiketsu high school hat, having changed into his uniform after exiting the train. Man, who would have thought that entering high school could be so exciting? Izuku commented. You got that right, man. This is the most excited I've felt in a long time. A short bit of silence rolls around, as Izuku and this new voice turn their heads towards each other, before the new face suddenly starts showing a rather unpleasant face. Hold on. I'm confused. Have we met before? The young man towering over him stares intently at his eyes, a fierce hatred emanating out of his gaze, causing Izuku to slightly worry. What is your name? My name? It's Izuku. Your family name? Oh, right. Well, my family name is Yagi. Huh, Yagi? Yeah, why? After a few more seconds of staring at Izuku, the young man begins to laugh off loudly, while Izuku looks at him even more confused. Hey, sorry about that, man. I apologize for my behavior just now. I only treated you like that because for a second I thought you were a Todoroki. Hold on, a Todoroki? Yeah, this guy I met at the UA recommendation exams called Todoroki, and well, let's just say I don't really like the guy or his old man. His old man? Wait, by old man, are you referring to the number 2 hero Endeavor? Yep, that's the one. Wow, I guess based on your word alone the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Yeah, the guy had a pretty hateful expression after we finished the race together. At first I thought he was sour about me beating him, but then I saw the hatred on his face. Oh, I see. Izuku muttered. But wait, why did you think I was a Todoroki? Oh, well, it's cause of those pearly blue eyes and white hair of yours. Endeavor has eyes just as blue as those, and his son had white hair on one side of his head, so I figured you were his brother or something. I see. Well, I can't exactly blame you for that. Well, anyway, since you told me your name, I should go ahead and tell you mine. Name's Urashi, Inasa Urashi. The young man says, sticking out his hand. Well, it's certainly nice to meet you. Say, what course are you in? What course? I managed to get into the hero course. No way. Same here, that means we're going to be classmates. Oh wow, that's pretty cool. All right. Well, let's hurry, Yagi, class is about to begin. Right. Izuku says, as he follows Inasa inside. The two run through the long and clean halls, both attempting to get to class on time, as to not incur the wrath of the teacher they would eventually have for the next 3 years. However, they cross the path of 2 students as they run through the halls, with one of them having a familiar shade of purple hair, while the other is a young woman with yellowish tan hair, who, unlike her companion, wears a black catsuit as her hero costume. You two, stop running this instant, the purple-haired student yells out. The sudden shout from the purple-haired student causes the two to stand still in place, standing at attention as if they were a part of a boot camp. Look at you two, running around the halls like ruffians. Have you no shame whatsoever? Look, we're sorry, all right. We just didn't want to be late, Inasa tells his senior. Is that right? Well, if you were proper students, then you would have gotten here 15 minutes before class. You should be ashamed of yourselves for your lack of discipline. Oh, come on. Take it easy on them, Shishikura. It is their first day, so why don't you cut them some slack? Another male voice calls out. Izuku turns his head to see a man with black, unkempt hair, with 3 other people approaching behind him. Yo, Shindo. Of course you would let them off easy. Even if it is their first day, they won't ever learn if we let them off without punishment. But they haven't even been to their first class. At least wait until they've done so. With a loud tch, the senior known as Shishikura begins to walk off on his own, while the blonde girl approaches Izuku. Don't worry about him. His dad just so happens to be the principal of this school, and he wants things to be in order. The girl tells him. I see. Izuku comments. By the way, name's Kami. You should like totes come hang out with us after class. Oh, well, sure. I'll do that once I sort my things out. Great, then you better head to class, otherwise miss joke. Will totes give you detention? Right. See you around. Dude, she yells out, before walking away from the two. Man, that girl sure is different from that purple-haired monster. Huh? Inasa commented. Yeah, you said it. That guy must have some sort of stick up his rear if he's acting like that. Also, did that girl say Miss Joke? Salmon, salmon. Upon hearing this, Izuku slowly turns his head to see a young man around his age, covering the lower half of his face with a high collar with a zipper, while raising his hand up, slightly waving at him. Kelp, the young man says to him. Oh, it's that Shishikura guy, he's come back for his revenge on us. No, Yurashi, this isn't the guy that we saw just now. Though I do admit, the purple hair does strike a resemblance. Anyway, what's your name? But the young man is unable to answer them, as he merely look on at the two in an embarrassed manner. You think he has a limited vocabulary, Yagi? Inesa asks him. Maybe, but there might be a reason for it. The young man brings out a small notebook, where he begins to write inside it, introducing himself as Hitoshi Shinszo. Hitoshi Shinszo, huh? Well, it's very nice to meet you, Shinszo. My name is Izuku Yagi. Yeah, and I'm Inesa Yurashi, but just call me Inesa. Nodding his head, the three boys quickly make their way to their classroom, where they walk into an empty room, with only 4 chairs lined up at the front of the room. Hold on a minute, where's the teacher? Inesa asked his 2 classmates. I thought they would be here by now. Salmon, salmon. Shinszo comments. Well, that's because she's already here, a female voice yells out. Inesa cries out. Haha, now, that is quite a reaction, the teacher cries out in joy, haha. Hey, hold one, you're the interviewer, Izuku points out. You were actually a teacher? Right, kid, I'm just happy you recognized me. Well, you are the only person I've met with that color hair, so it was pretty easy to figure it out. Wait, hold on, I recognize you. You're the smile hero. Ms. Joke, aren't you a teacher at Ketsubutsu Academy High School? Well, I was, but because of certain things that I cannot disclose, Shiketsu and Ketsubutsu decided to merge together as one school. Wait, seriously? Oh yeah, I think I heard about that on the news a couple years back. Izuku comments. Salmon, salmon. But wait, there are only 4 desks and chairs here. Where are the other desks and chairs? Izuku asks her. Well, about that. So it turns out the principal has some really odd policies in regards to the way he runs things here. So, not only is there one first-year course, but there are only 4 students in this class. The 3 boys mostly react in a mixture of surprise and shock at this revelation. Only 4? Inesa repeats. Mustard leaf. Shinszo says with worry. Yep, only 4 students this year. Oh, and before you ask, no, I don't know how this school manages to get money, because even I don't know, Ms. Joke tells them. But wait, where's the 4th student? Izuku asks his teacher. Oh, they should be arriving any second now. So I want you all to head to your desks and be nice, Kay? Doing what the teacher asked them, the 3 boys sit at their seats, all while hearing the ticking of the clock above. I wonder what this other student is like. Inesa questions. I hope it's a girl. Salmon, salmon. Okay, seriously. Why are you speaking in food items, dude? Well, it could be because of his powers. I mean, we don't exactly know what it is yet, so maybe we should wait until this last student comes in to ask. Okay, but all that talk of salmon is starting to make me hungry. This person better show up soon. Approximately 5 minutes passed, as the students continued to wait for this 4th student to come by. Izuku, who was a bit impatient, ended up speaking to Shinszo about his quirk, noting down the abilities connected to the power in his small notebook. Oh, I see. So you can basically force people to obey commands if they hear you say something like sleep or blast away. Salmon, salmon. And the more demanding is the command, the more of a toll it pays on your body. Salmon, salmon. So you use safe words, as to not activate your quirk unintentionally, which is why you're speaking in food items. Salmon, salmon. Wow, so many interesting things about your powers. It's so cool. Wait, you can't talk normally because of your quirk? Man, that's gotta suck. This results in Shinszo leaning over his desk in sadness, with Izuku doing his best to comfort the poor boy. Eventually, the door to the classroom opens, catching the attention of the 3 boys, but the first footstep inside the classroom causes Ms. Joke and the 2 boys to shiver in fear at the darkness. But Izuku didn't show any sign of fear, only an interesting sense of curiosity of the darkness approaching inside. However, the illusion of darkness the 2 boys and teacher saw was nothing more than their imaginations going wild, as a boy with black hair approaches the front of the room. Greetings. My name is Fumikage. Fumikage Tokoyami. It is a pleasure to meet you all, the boy says while bowing. Yeah, thanks Tokoyami, Ms. Joke says, while continuing to shiver. Now that everyone is here, class, let's head out to the dorm building. so you can get yourselves sorted out into your rooms. Yes, ma'am, the two boys yell out. Salmon, salmon. The four boys and the teacher make their way out of the classroom, grabbing their bags, and following the teacher out of the building. Excuse me, may I talk to you for a second? The boy named Fumikage asks Izuku. Oh, sure. The two boys stay back before continuing to walk, with the others respecting their private conversation somehow. So Tokoyami, what's up? Out of everyone here, you have the largest reserve of energy. Huh, energy? Yes. But in terms of strength, you are only second to the big guy. Inasa, I believe his name was. Okay, I won't drag thing out for long, so answer truthfully. You have a curse technique, don't you? Hold on, you know about them? How? Well, because I have one of my own. And plus, given the large amount of cursed energy you have, it was expected. Though if you said what are curse techniques, I would just pretend I was just speaking nonsense. But since you confirmed you have one, I don't have to do so. Wow, this is actually quite surprising. I've never met anyone else who had cursed energy, much less have a cursed technique. Izuku says in embarrassment. It is certainly surprising. Because most people couldn't see my technique, they believed me as nothing more than a quirkless child. But thankfully, my folks taught me early on how to use this technique. Though, I still haven't mastered it, unfortunately. Fumikage explains. Oh, I haven't either, so there's no reason to worry. I see. Then I believe it would be beneficial if we establish friendship with each other. Huh. Considering you're the only one I've encountered so far with a curse technique, I would like to be on good terms so that we may grow stronger together as heroes in training. Oh, okay. That sounds good. Though I'm not exactly sure I can help you. I only learned about this curse technique recently. How recently are we talking? About a year ago. Seriously? Yeah, Izuku said with a sigh. Oh well, that's the reason why we're here. To not only learn the necessary things needed to become heroes, but also improve our skills and our abilities. Yep, that's true. So let's do our best. Eventually, the group of four would enter the large dorm building, admiring the interior of the place. Here students during their off time can relax either in the common room or their rooms. Today will just be an off day where you'll set up your room and even interact with the second and third years. Okay, so put away your things and head down here as soon as possible. Yes, ma'am. Salmon. After putting away their things, Izuku and the four boys begin to head down the stairs, where they are suddenly met with party streamers and a loud welcome to Shiketsu from both the second and third years. Wow, what a welcoming. Inasa comments. Yeah, quite surprising, Izuku comments. Salmon. So, Ms. Joke, what exactly is this for? Well, we just figured that we should provide our newcomers a warm welcome to this prestigious school. And it's kind of mandatory for us to do this every year as a way to form camaraderie. Shishikura mentions in a very sour mood. This causes the third years and the other two second years to give Shishikura a rather displeased look, all while he looks around in confusion. Anyway, the point is, we want you four to feel welcome at this school, and that you could consider us a pseudo-family, if you will. The four first years look at each other with a somewhat puzzled look on their faces before turning back to their elders. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get this welcome party going, Inasa yells out. What ends up happening for the next few hours is rather unimportant to the overall progression of the story, with most of the time being spent with the third years and second years trying to show off their skills to the new first years and just enjoying the large amounts of junk food and sugar provided by said second and third years. For our white-haired protagonist in particular, he had consumed a lot during the makeshift event, most likely as a result of not having had breakfast that day. This unfortunately resulted in him crashing to sleep, having eaten so much that he fell into a short food coma, unable to wake up immediately. Eventually, moments pass, and Izuku opens his eyes once more, his gaze meeting with the ceiling, as he rubbed his eyes softly to wake himself up fully. So tired. I guess I had a bit too much food to eat. Izuku commented. He put on his sunglasses, looking around the room he had set up the night prior, seeing nothing really out of the ordinary. That was, until he looked underneath his quilt. Huh, Izuku yelled out. It turns out, what he was reacting so loudly at was the sudden, yet unexpected appearance of Kami, who for some reason had been laying on his bed still wearing her Shiketsu school uniform. What the heck, where am I? Kami asks herself. Oh no, I forgot to put on my pajamas before going to bed. Now my uniform's all ruined. Utsushimi. Izuku said out loud in embarrassment. Huh. Oh hey Yagi. Well, this is a bit embarrassing. Izuku's mind begins to spiral into all sorts of thoughts, as he believed the unthinkable happened on his first day at Shiketsu. After the events of the welcoming party, things at Shiketsu begun to go as planned, with Ms. Joke and the other nameless teachers teaching the four boys about all sorts of subject matter. Hero laws, situational analysis, and even some practical lessons that had the goal of getting a better grip on their powers. It turned out, Fumikage had a very interesting curse technique that piqued Izuku's curiosity. He had the ability to summon several creatures as a result of what Fumikage said was called the 10 Shadows technique. This piqued Izuku's interest. This allowed the young man to summon creatures he called Shikigami, with each of them possessing unique abilities to his benefit. But he wasn't the only one who had an interesting power. Despite Inesa being what some would describe as a total Dumbo, he was pretty competent when it came to the use of his powers, especially if it was in team-coordinated activities. His ability allowed him to swap places with someone or something he so desired, if he simply clapped his hands together, though there were limitations to this. It needed to have a certain amount of what Inesa called fluctuating waves, something he noted he could infuse in inanimate objects and use them as a maneuver to get behind opponents. Despite all these distractions, Izuku was still held up by what had happened when he found Kami in his bed after the party, even though nothing really ended up happening. Izuku had never really spoken to any girl in his life, much less go on a date with one, so the fact something like this happened really kept unintentionally frying his mind with embarrassment. "Hey Yagi, you okay? Your face is going all red and stuff." Inesa asked him. "Yeah, I'm fine, just something on my mind, that's all." Izuku told him. "Oh good. For a second I thought you were getting sick because of the food." As the boys continued to eat their meals, Inesa began to speak once more. "So, that Kami girl is certainly something, ain't she?" This causes Izuku to slightly begin to hurl, but he is able to swallow his food again. "Well, from first impressions, she's a bit of an airhead. Though I can't really comment on her when I haven't seen her full capabilities." Fumikage commented. "What about Yagi?" Izuku struggled to answer. His mind was still occupied with the memory of them in his room. Sweat began to drop down his face, though only slightly, as he was quickly able to wipe it off with his hand. "Well, I can't really say. Much like Tokoyami, I can't comment about her when I haven't seen her in action. Other than that, she seems nice." "I can agree with that. But on to something more important. Something only us guys can talk about." The three peaked their ears in curiosity as they moved their heads closer to Inesa. "What kind of girls are you into?" This question causes Fumikage to merely shift his head back to the rest of his body, annoyed at the question. "What nonsense." Fumikage comments. "To have a discussion about something so trivial is not worthy of my time." "Huh, what do you mean nonsense?" Inesa says in confusion. "Come on, as guys, something like this is very important. To you maybe, but something like that is none of my concern, not until I become a fully fledged pro hero. Pursuing a relationship now would only take away important time from my hands. And I want to be as prepared as possible for the future. Men talk about boring. Anyway, Shinszo, what's your type?" Shinszo, unable to actually say his type, merely writes down on his small notepad, writing his type as girls who are good at cooking tuna mayo on a jirai. That's a pretty decent answer. A girl that can cook is definitely something every guy has fantasied about every once in a while. "Salmon, what about Yagi? What's your type?" Inesa asks him. "Oh, me? Well, I haven't really thought about that. Quite frankly, I haven't had a conversation with a girl before, much less date one." "Wait, seriously? You've never talked to a girl before?" Inesa yells out. "Talk about a letdown. Even I'm surprised by that." Fumikage comments. "Well, people at my junior high didn't really like me, so I don't really have any experience with girls, dating, or otherwise." "I see. So when you spoke to Kami the other day, that was the first girl you ever spoke to?" Inesa asks him. "Well, there was one other girl, but I didn't really have a proper conversation with her." "Oh, I see. So in other words, you're a loner." Really cutting deep there, but yeah. "It's a shame that more girls aren't at this school. Otherwise, I could have been your wingman or something." "Oh, please, as if someone like you has had a girlfriend before." Fumikage says at Inesa's claim. "What, you're doubting me?" "As a matter of fact, I am. Guys, let's not argue." Izuku pleads too. But as he tries to quell the argument, he spots Kami and the other two second-year students walking out of the cafeteria. Seeing this, he begins to make his way towards her. "Sie Miss Utsushimi," Izuku called out. The blonde looked back after hearing this. Oh hey Yagi, what can I do for you? I wanted to speak you, in private if that's okay. Oh okay. Shishikura Amora. You two head up without me. My junior and I are gonna have a chat. She tells the two. Okay Cammy. The hairy student named Mora responded. Don't be late. Otherwise I will hold you in contempt, Shishikura tells her. This isn't a courtroom, you know. Izuku thought to himself. As the two left, the first and second years stand in front of each other, with Izuku trying his best to concentrate on the matter at hand. Miss Utsushimi, thank you for staying to speak with me. Oh that's like, no problem little hunk. Kemi commented. Hold on hunk. I'll forget that. Listen, about what happened before in my room, I apologize if something happened between us. Apologize? What for? You know you being in my bed after the welcome party. Oh that. Yeah, that's like, totes not a problem. Nothing really happened between us. Wait, seriously? Yep, I remember exactly what happened, up until I fell asleep. See, Shishikura been getting me and Mora to do some really intense training to prepare for the provisional license exam. I guess my body just needed to relax for a change, and I accidentally fell asleep in your bed. That just sounds like a situation straight out of a eki manga, Izuku thinks to himself. Anyway, I hope what happened doesn't cause problems between us, and if it does, I humbly apologize. Wow, you're really worried about this, huh? Well, I guess that totes makes sense. If a person saw what was going on without context, they would probably think there was something between us. Yeah, but, like I said, you don't have to apologize for anything. I mean, it's not like I want that kind of relationship between us. Somehow, this feels like I'm being rejected. Izuku thought sadly, despite his original assertion. Well, that's quite understandable. But honestly, you seem more like a little brother. And there it is. Izuku muttered out loud. Well, I'm glad we could clear things up. Thank you for taking your time to talk to me. As he goes to walk away, though, something caught his ear, causing it to twitch slightly. He turns back, seeing Cammy still standing there with a rather cute expression on her face. Though that doesn't mean I find you unattractive. In fact, you're quite the opposite. But let's just remain junior and senior. If there's anything you need help with, you can totes come to me for advice, especially if you need help with girl problems. Oh, sure. Izuku mutters. Great, good luck in your classes. Cammy tells him. She begins to walk away from him, his mind finally clear of any trouble, while Fumikage, Shinszo, and Inasa come out from the corner. Oh, hey Yagi. What were you talking to Cammy about? Inasa asks him. Huh. Oh, nothing important. Okay, whatever you say, dude. The four began to make their way to their next class, ready to continue their training of both combat and quirk improvement, while Cammy ran to her other two classmates. Cammy, what was it that boy wanted to speak to you about? Mora asks her. It was nothing. My junior just wanted to ask me for advice. Of all the people, he went to you for advice. Shishikura said with a perplexed tone. Hey, I can totes provide good advice. As the four boys trained at their class, Izuku was currently feeling down, having a wall he believed he would be stuck at for a while. Because Izuku couldn't still figure out how to use reverse cursed technique, or the hollow technique, which required proficiency of reverse curse technique, he opted to go for the next best thing, learning how to use domain expansion. Page after page, he read through the intricate complexity behind the creation of a domain expansion, with some mention of several key things, such as using a barrier to construct it inside a separate space, expanding one's innate domain with cursed energy and Poincare conjecture. That last part he didn't know why it was included, but whoever wrote this journal must have put it there for a reason. And so, during his training, he would try multiple times to cast his domain, testing it out on Inasa time and time again, with no success. The rest of the day went without any known issues, with the four boys quickly warming up to the dorms and the other students, with only minor arguments erupting, though this was mostly due to Shishikura and Inasa. Eventually, the time is now 6 in the afternoon, and we see Fumikage and Izuku walking together to the local late-night convenience store, with permission from Ms. Joke, of course. Still can't believe we got stuck with making tonight's dinner for the whole dorm. Well, it is a set schedule. You're just lucky you got me to tag along with instead on Shishikura. Fumikage comments. Yeah, that's true. By the way, you wouldn't happen to know anything about domain expansion, do you, Tokoyami? I do. My father often spoke about the capabilities of jujitsu sorcery, despite not possessing a technique of his own. Primarily that a domain expansion was the pinnacle of jujitsu sorcery. But it is complex to master, so I chose to try and tame as many Shikigami as possible. I see. By the way, have there been ones you couldn't tame? During my childhood, there were a couple, but those were minor setbacks. Oh cool. That means you tamed all of them? Not quite. Huh. There is one that still eludes me. The most powerful of all the 10 Shikigami. But that is a concern only I need to deal with, so there's no need for you to worry. Fumikage comments. I see. By the way, have you ever exorcised a cursed spirit before? Huh. Exorcised? I thought not. Considering you only learned of your family history recently, I did not expect you to answer with a yes. Fumikage began. The two make a small detour to a nearby alleyway, where they see a small group of cursed spirits wandering the narrow area, both of them not displaying a look of worry. Cursed spirits incarnate from that leaks out of humans over time due to their negative emotions. It gathers in one spot, building up in quantity, until a cursed spirit takes form. I see. Fumikage begins to approach the small group of spirits, saying negative emotions such as grief and anger are the foundation of cursed energy. These things will always exist alongside humanity. They disgust me. Oh no, does that mean I've been unintentionally creating cursed spirits? Perhaps, but that was before you trained to control it. I imagine nowadays a singular cursed spirit would be created from you. Cool. Fumikage stops in front of the small group of cursed spirits, swiping his hand horizontally, before they all suddenly disintegrated out of existence. Well, how did you do that? Curses can only be exorcised with cursed energy. That is the general rule of thumb. If you ever encounter a curse, it is best to exorcise them immediately. Got it? Got it. Good. Now let's continue to the convenience store. We've still got a meal to prepare. You said it. The two continue to make their way to the convenience store, leaving the alleyway. As an eerie gust of wind passes through it, the sounds of echoing footsteps soon being heard, as a small little girl, eyes crimson red, skin pale white, but slightly darker than the white hair on her head. But the most distinct part about were the several scars on her face, neck, and arms. Huh, where did my new friends go? She looks around slightly, sensing the cursed energy residue in the area, before smiling in a twisted and childlike manner. Oh man, I just missed them. Oh well, I was getting bored of these toys anyway. Perhaps these two new ones will provide more entertainment than these goons Shigaraki gave me. The little girl merely begins to skip away, whistling in the night, as the echoes began to grow more silent. After coming back from the convenience store, the dorm enjoys the meal Fumikage and Izuku had prepared for them, despite their lack of cooking expertise. Eventually, the students go to sleep, each of them enjoying the relaxation it brought them, as the nighttime sounds ease their minds. However, after a few hours at what seemed to be 5 in the morning, Izuku gets a ping on his phone, with the young man quickly turning it on to see the contents of the notification. What? UA was attacked? He muttered as he stared at his phone. Daylight soon arrives, and we see the class of 4, particularly Inasa, surprised at the news Ms. Joke has just told them. What? There's no way UA got attacked yesterday? Inasa yelled out. I'm afraid so. Apparently, a group of criminals called the League of Villains invaded one of their facilities while teaching a group of first year's basic rescue training. It's surprising to hear, but it's true. The class is in silence for what feels like 5 seconds, before Fumikage begins to speak up. While despite them training to rescue people, it looks like they were the ones needing rescuing. Dude, that's out of line, Inasa comments. What? I was just stating facts. How could UA, one of Japan's best hero schools, be so easily invaded? Well, apparently the villains had access to a warping quirk, a quirk that is extremely rare. Something like that in their hands would allow them to get in without any issue. That aside, they had someone who had the ability to jam electronics, so communication was largely useless. Ms. Joke explained. Luckily, one of the students managed to notify staff, and they were all accounted for. I see. Well, considering those factors, I'm surprised they survived such an encounter with villains. While they were villains, they were mostly criminal charged with theft and kidnappings. Plus, considering the power the students had, most of them were capable of combat. Excuse me, Ms. Joke. Did the UA staff tell you exactly why they attacked? It wouldn't be just coincidence. While they did say they were trying to unalive All Might, something to do with a special weapon they created dubbed the Nomu, But like always, All Might was able to take those villains down. This detail alone caught Izuku's attention. Seeing how he knew of his father's identity as All Might, he began to think on every possibility as to what warranted these villains to try and kill All Might. Sure, criminals would be annoyed at All Might. He's virtually unstoppable with that power of his. But even if they wanted to take him down, what could they even do on their own, let alone in a group? Izuku thought to himself. Did they coordinate an attack just to finish off a class of first years, then All Might? No, there's not much information to validate that theory. Could it be that they somehow knew he would be there? I need to find out more information. Anyway, this brings me to something that was decided by our esteemed principal. The class of 4 stayed silent, wondering what exactly their teacher is talking about. Shiketsu has decided that for our sports festival, instead of doing it the old-fashioned way of only allowing friends and family to see, that we would be making a trip south to participate in an inter-school sports festival. The 4 students, however, instead of reacting with excitement, merely look on in confusion. Why are none of you getting excited? No offense, Miss Joke. But why exactly are we doing this? More importantly, why is UA still holding their sports festival? Fumikage asks her. Surely they would want to avoid holding any public events just after they got attacked by a group of villains. Yeah, I won't lie, teach. Even I have some worries about this. And I would usually be pumped for something like this. Inasa answers. Well, apparently UA's principal and their school administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled. Plus, the 2 principals have been talking for months and believe this is the best way for our 2 schools to deepen our connection together. Ms. Joke tells them. Plus, they're beefing up security compared to past years, so it should be fine. This event is a huge opportunity for you guys. None of our students had an opportunity like this in previous years. Whoever this principal is, they aren't really smart to be doing this. If they're trying to show off UA's pride as a school, this could result in some backlash from anyone opposed to them. Izuku thought to himself. But this is the perfect chance to finally show off the power at my disposal to those 2. Izuku's initial hesitance soon turned into that of deep-seated pride. Sure, he only learned to use this power nearly only a year ago, but he was already at the strength far beyond anything he could imagine. He loved this feeling and began to clench his fist. Yeah, now's my chance. I can finally show them that I'm not the weak, helpless boy they saw all their lives. Izuku thought to himself. I will show them my strength, and I will win. Izuku's eyes changed into a gaze of determination, staring out at the window as the sun shined brightly next to him. Inside a dark and gloomy room, at an undisclosed location, we see a young man glued to his screen, with what looks to be a keyboard and mouse on his desk, playing an online game infamous in today's standards, a game that has brought so much hatred that it is often mocked by many. League of Legends. After playing the game for what seemed like a long time, with the young man constantly yelling at his team mates every time they died, a card displaying the word defeat causes the young man to Alt plus F4, closing the game from his computer. These idiots, why can't they just follow through with the plan and not screw up, the blue-haired young man yells. Aw, did you lose again, big bro? A young female voice called out. The young steps out of the dark corridor to reveal themselves, wearing a white buttoned-up shirt and having a black dress worn over it. Her pale body covered in various scars, though not from any sort of injury she sustained. Seriously, big bro, you really gotta stop playing that stupid game. Otherwise, you'll never get a girlfriend. I mean, what kind of woman would want to date a loser like you who plays that game of all things? Why, you little? Calm down, Tamura Shigaraki. A deep voice calls out. Coming out of the same corridor, we see a man made up of entirely misty, purple substance, his eyes yellow as the lights above. She does have a point. You've confined yourself here ever since your loss at the USJ. It's time to start getting back to work. He continues. Why should I? Did you not see what happened to me, Kurojiri? Tamura shouts while pointing at the gun wounds. We were humiliated. The Nomu lost to All Might. Those weak lackeys lost to children of all people. And what's worse, I couldn't even defeat All Might. Calm yourself, Tamura Shigaraki. The Nomu was only designed to match and slightly surpass All Might at 100%. We could have never anticipated that he would go beyond his normal limits. But it is clear he has gotten weaker. Kurojiri explains. It was not your fault that we lost, we merely miscalculated. Use this experience to understand why we lost and learn from your shortcomings. Tamura took in the bartender's words, choosing not to think about them at this point in time, before turning back to his screen. Leave me alone, I have a game to win. The two behind them let out a rather disappointed sigh as they begin to leave the young man to his devices. Oh well, it seems like Big Bro is just gonna keep playing that stupid game forever. Eri comments. Do not fret. The master has a plan to help our young master readjust and get back on track. Speaking of, where's Dad? The master is currently handling some business elsewhere, so he won't be home anytime soon. Oh man. But he has promised to get you a candy apple when he returns. Really? That's great, all right. Now I'm excited. As she began skipping away from Kurogiri, she turns back to him with a smile on her face. By the way, I found two very strong people. Oh, yeah, one of them killed my friends with ease. It makes me so intrigued by them, even if I didn't see their faces. I just hope to see them soon, so then I can make them my new playthings. 2 weeks pass, and our 4 Shiketsu first years have been training their butts off. While it was nothing really groundbreaking, they decided to put in their all, as to help impress not only their seniors, but also their school's faculty. They wanted to show off their skills against some UA students, and show them just how powerful Shiketsu students really were in a friendly competition. We see our first, second, and third years, as well as some teachers, boarding a train, as the 4 boys anticipate the event that they weren't expecting, the UA Sports Festival. For the most part, they kind of already knew what they were expecting. A competition that would periodically eliminate students based on fixed position. Nevertheless, the possibility of losing did cross their mind, but only momentarily. Man, I can't wait to see what kind of people we'll face against at this sports festival. Inasa comments. It won't matter. Compared to our class of 4, they seem to have the numbers advantage. Fumikage comments. In that case, we'll need to work together if we have any chance at winning. Salmon. Shinszo mutters. But what even are the events anyway? Inasa comments. They surely can't be too hard. Well, I know they aren't set event. Izuku begins. Every year the events are different, completely based on what the wheel gives us. However, the tournament is always a permanent event. The wheel just decides what kind of tournament it's going to be. It could be anything, even a battle royale if we're lucky. So in other words, we can't prepare beforehand. That certainly doesn't help. Inasa comments. Indeed. Fumikage adds. Which means we'll need to plan on the fly. Not necessarily. A large majority of those at UA are mainly those in the general studies, support course and business courses. They'll be easy to take care of. The only real issue are the 40 students hero course. 40? Where did you get that number? Huh. Oh, before I left for Shiketsu, I heard from my sister that she was one of 20 students of Class 1A, that being one of the 2 hero course classes. Wait, hold on. You have a sister? Inasa yells out. Wait, have I not told you guys? Well, yeah, I have a sister. Unlike me, she was very popular in junior high, mostly due to her strength enhancement quirk. Your sister has strength enhancement? Interesting. Would you happen to know anyone else who may have made it into the hero course? Well, there is one other guy. Katsuki Bakugo. He can secrete nitroglycerin sweat that can ignite on command. It's very versatile, so don't underestimate him. Other than those 2, I've got nothing. Sorry. Don't be. Having knowledge of 2 people that are in their hero course provides us with a powerful advantage. They don't know anything about us, so we hold the upper hand. What about you, Inasa? You know anyone who may be in the hero course based off recommendation? Oh, well, I only know about a few people. There was one called Momo Yaoyorozu. While she isn't exactly superhuman fast, she definitely can run fast. I believe her quirk was called Creation. There were 2 others called Setsuna Tokage and Juzo Hananuki, but I barely saw them, so I've got nothing on them. But I know there is one who would have gotten in. Shodo Todoroki. Oh yeah, the guy you thought was my brother. Izuku chimes in. His quirk is half hot, half cold. He can create ice on his right side and fire on his left, though he only seemed to use his ice powers. Half hot, half cold. That seems like a rather simple name. Fumikage responds. Still, with the little knowledge we have, it could give us something to plan for. All right, then let's get to planning. Hours pass, and the boys begin to plan out how to prepare for the sports festival they are traveling to. Eventually, they reach their stop and begin to make their way off the train and into a bus taking them to the UA campus, where fireworks go off in the sky and bustling crowds walk into the front gate. All right, boys, I want you to give them hell, Ms. Joke tells them. Now, it may seem a bit overwhelming, but I want you to do your best and make our school proud. Easy for you to say, Ms. Joke. You're not even competing. Fumikage tells her. Well, either way, good luck. So, Yagi, how do you think you'll fare against your sister if you ever fight her? Well, I've never actually fought her seriously before. But, if I have to be honest, it won't be a problem for me. The bus parks in front of the many entrances of the stadium, away from the rest of the crowd, allowing the 4 boys to exit out. You boys go on in. We'll be coming back soon, Ms. Joke yells out. As the bus leaves, the 4 boys begin to make their way inside the stadium, with them somewhat ending up lost due to the size of the stadium, but eventually, with the quick help of the hero Cementos, who had been patrolling the inside of the stadium, per instructions from Nizu would eventually make it to the grounds of the stadium, staying undercover. All right, boys. Once midnight calls you lot out, head on over to the rest of the students. Got it. Yes, sir, the 4 say in unison. But I don't get it. There are no other students. Inasa comments. Obviously haven't been called out yet, so be patient, will you? Fumikage tells him. As the 4 boys wait at the stadium grounds entrance, the 4 screens hanging from the top of the stadium turn on, revealing a blonde pro hero with a speaker on his neck. This hero is Present Mike. Hey, make some noise, all you Rabbit Sports fans. The crowd begins to cheer in loud droves. At present, Mike continued to speak into the microphone. Get those cameras prepped. Media hordes this year. We're bringing you some of the hottest performances in UA's festival history. Guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show. Are you ready? Let me hear you scream as our students make their way to the main stage. Coming out of one of the many entrances to the stadium grounds, countless students wearing their PE uniforms emerge onto the grassy ground as the crowd began to cheer once more. This first group are no strangers to the spotlight. You know them for withstanding a villain attack. They're the dazzling students lighting up your TVs with solid gold skills. That's right, it's the Hero Course students of Class 1A. So these are the Hero Course students of Class 1A, huh? They don't look so tough. Inasa comments. Careful, Inasa. Underestimating them could lead to your downfall. Fumikage tells him. Izuku looks amongst the crowd of students, spotting his sister walking next to Katsuki. Based on physical appearance, she looks like she's gotten quite muscular over the short time they haven't seen each other. But this didn't worry him. No, he was sure that he could handle his own. So, Yagi, which one's your sister? The green-haired girl. Oh, you mean that one? Inasa says as he points to what looks like a frog girl. No, the one walking next to the blonde boy. Upon seeing her, Inasa can picture the resemblance between them before laughing at himself. Right, that makes more sense than the frog girl. They haven't been getting nearly as much screen time, but this next group is still chock full of talent. Welcome, Hero Course Class B. As Present Mike continued to announce more classes onto the microphone, more and more students began to assemble at the center of the field, each one roughly containing a class of up to 20 students each. This slightly causes Shinszo to become nervous. Mustard Leaf, he mutters. Don't worry, dude. Inasa tells him. We've got each other's backs. That is until we get to the tournament. Salmon. Stepping onto the stage above the students, the cracking of a whip is heard from all across the stadium, with many of the male members of the crowd blushing in place. Welcome, one and all, Midnight yells out. Now then, as many of you know, we take pride in the UA Sports Festival. It gives each year of students an opportunity to show off what they are capable of in terms of strategy, versatility, and overall power. But this year, things will be rather different. The crowd murmurs amongst themselves as they each speculate what the R-rated hero could possibly be meaning behind this statement. In past years, only UA students have ever competed against each other. But this year, Principal Nizu has decided to spice things up a bit by having a joint sports festival with our sister school Shiketsu High. Some of the students reacted in surprise upon hearing this. Izuku took this as them not having been told prior that this sort of thing would happen. Why that was even he did not know, but that meant they weren't really prepared for this outcome, and Izuku was content with this. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for. Come on out, Shiketsu High students. The 4 boys, getting the green light, begin to make their way to the center of the stadium grounds, where the crowd, instead of cheering, merely murmur with each other, with comments such as what a small class, or they stand no chance. But regardless of the comments, they continued to walk, lining up with the rest of the students, albeit more formally than the other students, who also began to comment about them. Izumi, having looked behind her to wonder what these Shiketsu students were like, couldn't help but look on in shock as she eyes Izuku, her mind going blank momentarily before being nudged by Katsuki. Was something wrong? No, I thought I saw something, she said, trying not to draw attention. There's no way could it really be Izuku? That's impossible. How would he even get into Shiketsu? She thought to herself. Silence. Everyone now then, for the student pledge, we have Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo walks up to the stage, his boots making loud stomping sounds as he made contact with the metal. So that's Bakugo, huh? The one you were telling us about? Fumikage asks Izuku. Yeah, he's one you gotta look out for. I see. The blonde approaches the microphone, his face displaying no such ego or rage, only showing a stoic gaze. I just want to say I'm gonna win, he says to the microphone. I knew he'd say something like that. Izuku thought to himself, trying so hard not to laugh. Much of the student body lined up in the rows began to scowl at Katsuki for his victory speech, each shouting out disrespectful insults at the boy. Why would you be so disrespectful? You're representing us, all, a boy with glasses called out. Not my fault, the rest of you are just stepping stones to my victory, Katsuki says, giving a thumbs down to them. While some of the members of the student body began to get infuriated by this, Izuku couldn't help but get curious. Something about his expression was out of character. Katsuki would have normally laughed at the others, belittling them and reducing the rest of them as a joke, but this time he was serious. He was seriously declaring his victory despite the festival not having even started. Izuku could only chuckle at this to himself. Obviously, Katsuki had no idea of the opponents standing by at the back. Without further ado, it's time for us to get started. The first game is what you would call a qualifier. This is where you begin feeling the pain, the first fateful game of the festival. An electronic slot screen appeared behind her, the slot spinning rapidly, while Midnight began to entice the crowd with comments such as "What could it be?" or "Hope it'll be exciting." Eventually, the slot screen stops at this final result. An obstacle course. Tada! An obstacle course. All 11 classes and Shiketsu students will participate in this treacherous contest. The track is 4 kilometers around the outside of the stadium. I don't want to restrain anyone, at least in this game, she says while licking her lips seductively. As long as you don't leave the course, you're free to do whatever your heart desires. As the crowd begins to cheer, Inesa gets close to Izuku, whispering something to him. This obstacle course is going to be like the recommendation exam obstacle course? Unlikely. They would probably mix in a few unique elements to make it an even playing field. Of course, we don't know everyone's quirks here, so some might have an advantage in some areas. But I have an idea. Oh yeah? I want you to tell Shinszo and Fumikage this. He began to whisper in the boy's ear a plan he had in his mind, with Inesa's eyes slowly widening upon hearing the plan before smiling. You got it, he responds. Now then, take your places, contestants. The students begin to make their way to the starting line, the lights above them slowly activating while they watch in anticipation. These guys obviously want to win and advance to the next stage. But the problem with that is that compared to us, they have no chance. Izuku thinks to himself. Begin. Midnight shouts. Shinszo now. Izuku signals. Inesa, Fumikage, cover your ears. Having heard the signal, Shinszo unzips his high collar shirt, revealing a strange tattoo on the sides of his mouth and tongue, resembling that of snake and fangs, while the two boys cover their ears with their hands. Sleep, Shinszo yells. Suddenly, the students standing in front of them all begin to collapse on the spot, falling to sleep easily while the 4 begin to run. Holy moly, what was that just now? Present Mike yells out in confusion. It seems that the other students are completely asleep. Whatever they just did, it was a very well thought out strategy. A man wrapped up in bandages comments. Huh, what do you mean by that, Aizawa? One of the biggest problems in the early stages of the obstacle course is the door. With so many students cramped in a tight area, barely any would be able to make progress while trying to push through. They essentially eliminated that issue with whatever quirk the 4 just used. Those 4 had this plan well thought out. As the 4 boys made it through to the other side of the door, some of the students begin to wake up from the attack, freaking out as they saw the 4 making quite the lead. Even though we had to reduce the time limit of them sleeping, that should at least give us some distance between us and them. Izuku says to the 4, as long as we can maintain this lead, we should advance with no problem. As they begin to gain even more distance, the sounds of rumbling begin to make themselves known, as dozens of robots behind to flood the pathway. Targets acquired. Commencing termination. One of the robots voices out. Oh, Looks like the Shiketsu students are the first ones to stand off against our heavy metal swarm of Robo-Infernos. Do they stand a chance, or will they get crushed? Present Mike yells through the microphone. The three boys stay still momentarily, while Izuku walks forwards, completely calm. Don't worry guys, I'll clear a path for us. He lifts up his two hands, his hair flowing through the wind as he smiles in confidence. Cursed technique lapse, blue. While not seen by the public eye on the screens above, two blue energy balls suddenly appear, with the robots being drawn to the attack and colliding into each other. Holy moly, dude. Inasa comments. It didn't destroy them, but it should give them a run for their money while we're making progress. Then let's move it. Fumikage tells them. Unbelievable, it looks like one of the Shiketsu students managed to clear a path for them and have successfully passed the first obstacle. Present Mike yells. The other students begin to catch up to the four, with them quickly running past robots as they began to balance themselves. What? No way, that's unfair. How did they even get past? A short purple-haired student yelled out. Who cares, Mineta? We have to catch up, a red-haired boy yelled out. While the students try to coordinate a team-up attack against the robots, a certain dual-haired boy looks on at them, before ice begins to form on his right side. So this is what they meant by obstacles? This is what the other students faced in their entrance exams. Todoroki, what are you doing? A black-haired boy yells out. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they'd prepared something a little more difficult, especially since my dear old dad is watching. The four boys continue to make their distance from the rest of the participants. The sounds of crashing are heard, with Izuku turning his head back and seeing Shoto Todoroki running out of the dust cloud. Wow, either that guy is insanely strong and took those robots down, or is extremely lucky and just ran past them. Izuku. Yeah, Nasa? Grab some rocks from the ground while we're running, just in case we need to use my power. Right. He began collecting a few rocks on the ground, putting them in his pants pocket, before they end up stopping before a large pit with several stone pillars erected from the bottom. If they take a spill, they're out. If they want to pass this test, they'll have to get creative. It's the fall. Present Mike yells out. Wow, I wonder how long it took them to build this. Izuku thinks to himself. Well, it's obvious that cross it by normal means would only be a risk, so I have a better idea. Fumikage says to them. No. Clasping his hands in a bird hand sign, his shadow begins to manifest a winged creature behind him, with its size being larger than that of a large car. Holy cow, you made this one bigger than last time, Fumikage. Izuku comments. So what's the plan? Nu, using his wings, begins to fly slightly in the air, before grabbing Inasa by his jacket, lifting him in the air and dropping him off over to the other side. Whoa, that's pretty handy. Indeed, Nu is very versatile in various situations, so I do my best to give it respect. After several trips between the fall, Nu eventually drops off Izuku as the last person to the other side and continues to run through the course. Man, it's a shame you couldn't make it bigger in size. We could have just rode on its back and flew to the finish line. Inasa comments. Perhaps, but I would need to see if that's possible to begin with. In the meantime, let's just focus on winning this. As the four boys continued to run through the course, Shoto eventually catches up, completely, still momentarily, as his face is lacking any sort of expression. So these guys are pretty well trained after all. Then that means they aren't the only ones I need to watch out for. He thought to himself. He began using his ice quirk to simply slide over the ropes connected to the many pillars, all while a loud scream is heard echoing through the sky, as Katsuki begins blasting over the fall. You Shiketsu extras, he screams out. Tuna Shinszo yells while slapping Izuku's back. Huh. Looking up at the sky, Izuku sees Katsuki shoot towards them like a missile, his expression being one of blind rage. I won't let a single one of you get first place, you hear me? All of you are nothing more than a bunch of we. Shut up, Inasa yells out. Turning back and cocking back his fist, Inasa leaps into the air and sucker punches Katsuki on his right cheek, causing him to fall and land face flat into the ground. Man, that guy has some issues. He must be the kind of guy to have boring taste. There's no need to ponder on that guy, Fumikage tells him. On the large screen above, many of the audience members murmur to one another about the performance of the four Shiketsu students as they continued to fly on Nu's back. While some tried to play it off as being lucky, there were some that genuinely gave them credit where credit was due. Over at one of the booths, we see a large group of UA teachers discuss with each other about the performance of these Shiketsu students. Two in particular are trying to understand exactly what Izuku's power is based off the limited knowledge they have. You know, Snipe, I am curious as to what kind of quirk that kid with the white hair has. A hero wearing what appears to be a space suit says to her colleague. What do you think it could be? Well, 13, I'm not entirely sure either. A teacher with a cowboy hat says to her. When he and the others reached the robots, he flicked both of his arms out and caused many of the robots to collide into each other. Though he didn't end up destroying them, I believe it was by intention to slow the others down. Right, so could it be that he has a type of space quirk? Who knows? But if he makes it to the finals, then we might see more of what he has in store. Tashinori, who just so happened to sit next to them, couldn't help but be curious as to the look of the boy with white hair. For this entire race, he had concealed his face with the famous Shiketsu hat, but he felt like the boy was familiar. Alrighty folks, the 4 leaders in first place and the UA students behind them have put some distance between themselves and the students stuck at the fall. It hasn't been announced how many competitors will make it through to the next round, so there's no time to relax. Present Mike yells through the microphone. But for those in the audience, we're finally approaching the last obstacle. Everyone had better tread carefully. You're stepping onto a minefield. A minefield? Bonchio flakes. If you look carefully, you can see where those little bombs are buried, so keep your eyes on the ground, folks. By the way, those landmines were designed for the games, so they might be loud and flashy, but they're not all that powerful. Just enough to make you wet your pants, he yells in a dramatic fashion. Okay, this isn't an issue. We can just use that bird creature of yours to fly us over it, right? That would be a good strategy. All right, I'll summon him again. Hold on, Fumikage. You do that for the other 2. I just want to test something. Izuku, there's no time for pointless tests. We're in a hurry here. I know. So you guys do what we did before. I'll be able to catch up to you. Whatever. Doing what they had done back at the fall, Fumikage once again summons Nu to safely transport the boys over to the other side. As for Izuku, he had taken this as an opportunity to test something out regarding infinity. The application of it to his feet. Okay, so if infinity allows me to slow everything down infinitely, does that include my footsteps? He thinks as he stares down at the minefield. Welp, only one way to find out. He slowly begins to plant his feet on the ground, intentionally finding one of the mines and stepping on it. But to his surprise, there was no explosion. It worked. Holy moly, it worked. Having came to the revelation that applying infinity to his feet worked, he didn't waste any time and began to run for his life to the other side. What's this? In a shocking turn of events, one of the Shiketsu students seems to be crossing the minefield without any issue. What? Are these mines broken or something? Izuku, having crossed the minefield, catches up with his 3 classmates, with the 4 proceeding to run together like a sort of unique squad. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that some of the contestants have made it to the other side of the course, Present Mike yells out, who will be the first to make it out? As the sounds of footsteps grew closer and louder, a head of short black hair suddenly emerges out of the darkness and into the light of the sun. The first to make it back into the stadium is the first place winner. Inase Yurashi is our champion. Hell yeah. In second place, we have Fumikage Tokoyami, followed up with Hitoshi Shinszo in third place. And the fourth one coming out is wait, hold on. Am I reading this right? This is right last name. Present Mike says in surprise. Izuku Yagi is our 4th placed contestant. 3 people's eyes opened wide that day, as the unexpected name uttered by Present Mike had surprised them severely. Tashinori, Izumi, and Katsuki all reacted in silent shock, as his name had struck through their minds. Izuku, meanwhile, smiles confidently up at the sky, having passed the first event with his 4 friends. As the name Izuku Yagi echoed through the speakers, many of the students who were still at the fall and Todoroki, who had just arrived at the minefield, reacted in skepticism. Throughout the short time they knew her in class, she never mentioned anything personal about her family. They knew she had a mother and a father, but she never mentioned anything about having any siblings. So most of them were rather curious as this. While Izumi was hanging off one of the ropes attached to 2 stone pillars, her mind still confused by the predicament. Hold on, what did Present Mike just say? A pink-skinned and haired girl asks her classmates. I think he said Izuku Yagi. A red-head boy answers. Isn't that Izumi's last name? A blonde boy with a lightning bolt comments. Who cares? I just want to see what this guy looks like. The same pink girl shouts out. Mina, wait. As time passed, more and more students began to make their way past the fall and over to the minefield. Despite the previous claim that the mines weren't working, it was eventually discovered they were in fact working, with many students exploding up to the sky as a result. Eventually, more and more students arrived at the finish line, with the top 42 students advancing to the next round. However, that was not the only concern amongst the students. Katsuki Bakugo, who had finished in 9th place as a result of Inasa knocking his lights out, approaches Izuku with an expression of hatred in his eyes. Deku, he snarled. Why the hell are you here? As he approached, Inasa blocks his path, as his massive hulking size overshadowed the boy. And why are you speaking like that towards him? Inasa asked back in a stern tone. I doubt Izuku did anything to cause some idiot to speak to him like that. Idiot, huh? The hell are you, idiot? Butting into someone's goddamn business you got no business with. It is my business when some prick is bullying my friend. Huh, friend? What are you on about, you stupid gorilla? Deku doesn't have any friends. Then you obviously don't know him, he does friends. So how about you leave him alone, you chihuahua? Huh, chihuahua? Why you? Settle down, boys. Midnight calls out. Now then, the first game for the first years is finally over, and what a game it was. Only the top will advance to the next round. But don't be too let down if you didn't make the cut. We've prepared other opportunities for you to shine. As she stands on the stage, imposing an aura of hotness to the crowd, she cracks her whip, while the slot screen behind her once again lights up. Now the real fun is about to begin. The chance to fully move yourselves into the limelight. Give it your best. The slot screen begins to spin rapidly once more, with the students growing further worried by the anticipation. Let's see what we have in store for you next. Will your wildest fantasies come to life? What could it be? The waiting is torture. Prepare yourselves for this. As the screen stops to one of the many options, many of the students groan in annoyance of the result. In particular, a blonde-haired boy named Denki Kaminari groans the loudest. Cavalry battle? I'm terrible at those. Huh, it's not an individual event. I wonder how they'll split us up. A frog-faced girl next to him mutters in curiosity. Allow me to explain. The participants will form teams of 2 to 4 people as they see fit. In theory, it's basically the same as a regular playground game. But there is one difference. Each player has been assigned a point value based on the results from the obstacle course. Midnight tells the students. Despite a handful of students talking amongst themselves regarding how the point system works, Midnight merely ignores this problem, a likely result of her own quarrel of not getting paid enough to deal with their rudeness. Now then, the point assignments go up by increments of 5, starting from the bottom. For example, 42nd place is worth 5 points, and 41st is worth 10. And the point value assigned to the first place contestant is 10 million. This revelation causes a majority of the students to have their eyes light up in amazement, while Inasa, the one who had won the obstacle course, begins to feel a sense of fear shiver down his spine. 10 million? He mutters. Like a sort of hormonal hive mind, the other 38 students stare down at Inasa, their eyes showing a look of determination with the desire to win. That's right. It's survival of the fittest, with a chance for those at the bottom to overthrow the top, and since our esteemed guest, Inasa Yurashi, placed first in the qualifier, he'll be worth 10 million, the top prize for any wanting a guaranteed spot in the final event. As Inasa took the brunt of the stares from the many UA students, Izuku was also facing some stares. Only, it was from 2 people in particular. Katsuki, who still stared at him with rage, and Izumi, who for some reason looked away as soon as her stares were discovered. So this is the curse of being at the top? I see. Then we'll meet this challenge head-on. Izuku thought to himself. First years, these are the rules that you'll abide by. Midnight resumes. The game itself will last 15 minutes. Individual point values will be added together to reach your team total. Everyone will know how much you're worth thanks to your headbands. Swipe as many headbands as you can to raise your team's score. Stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up. So the more you steal, the harder it'll be to manage them. And another thing, even if your headband gets stolen or your team falls down, you can keep playing until time's up. I see. So that means that this is basically anyone's game then. Fumikage mutters to the others. And since there are 42 contestants, there'll be 10 or 12 teams fighting on the field the entire time. Now that sounds like a challenge. Inasa comments, Salmon, even if we have more time to plan if we lose our headband first, I believe it would be best not to lose it at all. Fumikage finishes. The three nod their heads in agreement, as Midnight once again cracks her whip, echoing the sound throughout the entire stadium. This is going to be rough. You may use your quirks as much as you like, but there are still rules. Make a team fall on purpose, and I'll slap you with a red card. You'll be disqualified. Upon hearing this, Fumikage pinches his nose in annoyance. So much for that strategy. Huh, what were you going to do? Inasa asks him. I was going to use my Shikigami to knock down each of the teams so they wouldn't be able to get to us, but with that rule in mind, and that some may see them, I can't necessarily get away with using that strategy. Now, you've got 15 minutes to build your teams. I recommend you get started. During this period of time, the four boys huddle up together, having already established their team the second they were able to do so. After all, Shiketsu students have to stick together. But the main point of concern was the realization that most of the teams were going to target them, not only because they had the 10 million points, but that they were just 4 Shiketsu students going up against 38 UA students. Things were not good for the four. Oh man, who would have thought winning some stupid race was going to end up this badly? Calm yourself, Inasa. Just because we have a large target on our backs, it doesn't mean we are at a disadvantage. Fumikage tells him, the way I see it, there are 2 ways we can win this. Option 1. We have Shinszo as the rider, and have him use that sleep command at the beginning like we did at the obstacle course, and have us automatically win. But since we can't knock teams down intentionally, that leaves us with option 2, which is, we have Izuku as the rider, and protect the headbands with his infinity. You know I won't lie to you, Fumikage, I prefer the first option. Inasa comments, but since we can't go with it, then I guess this will have to do. Salmon. As each of the students gathered in their teams, we see Izumi of all people in a daze, as she sees Izuku talking amongst his classmates. In the time she knew him, he never saw him cooperate with anyone, let alone be friends with anyone. Due to the circumstances of his quirkless status, most people tended to avoid him if they weren't bullying him. But seeing him in this moment, with a small group of friends, she didn't know how to feel. Annoyance? Guilt? Her mind swirled with various different emotions, some she could not even explain. But one thing was present in her mind, the drive to win this event. And even if she wasn't on the same teams as Katsuki, she was determined to win. After 15 minutes, each of the students gather in their established teams, each of them staring down the Shiketsu team. If all teams are ready, then let's get this party started. One final countdown before the game starts. Present Mike yells out. 3. You ready, man? Inasa asks Izuku. Ready as I'll ever be. 2. Let's get these monsters. Katsuki growls while cracking his knuckles. 1. I won't lose. Todoroki thinks to himself. Begin. As the alarm blares loudly out of the speakers, all teams begin to rush towards Team Shiketsu. Holy moly, they're all gunning for us. Then run, you fool. We'll be sitting ducks if we just stand here. Fumikage says, scolding him. Right. The 3 carrying Izuku begin to run as best they can away from the other teams, with some trying to reach for the 10 million headband on Izuku's forehead. Man, these guys don't know when to quit. Just focus, Inasa. Now Jizo, a male voice yells out. Underneath the team, the ground slowly begins to transform into mud, causing the team to remain in place momentarily. What the? Yes, we got him now. That headband is ours. The one called Tetsu reaches his hand out and tries to grab the headband. But to his surprise, he finds that he is unable to move his hand any further, stopping just before it. What the? No way. You really thought you could catch us that easily? Izuku spouts. It's a good thing I didn't show off too much during the obstacle course. Otherwise you would have been aware that I have this ability. What the hell? It's pointless to even try. So long as I have this barrier active, none of you could even take this headband. Tetsu began to grow agitated by this, as Izuku in a swift motion grabs the team's headband. Better luck next time. After pulling themselves out of the mud trap, Team Shiketsu flees from Team Tetsu and makes their way to one part of the stadium field. Monsters, that 10 million point headband is mine. Katsuki screams at the top of his lungs. Having dismounted from his team, he begins to explode towards them with that same fire in his eyes. DKU, you monster, I'll rip that headband off you and make sure you don't advance. But as he shoots towards them, he gets electrocuted by Nu, who had been summoned by Fumikage as they were running to their current location. You know, for a UA student in the hero course, you sure don't know how to use that brain of yours. Fumikage yells mockingly. As the rest of Team Bakugo catches their rider, another team zips on past them, their headband slowly being taken off the blonde boy's head. Your class is too small-minded. Think bigger. A blonde boy with gray eyes says to them. He got us, Mina shouted in surprise. What did you say? Come back here. Midnight said the obstacle course was just the first game, and we figured they wouldn't cut that many of us right off the bat. Would they? Huh. What the hell are you on about? Assuming they'd keep at least contestants for the next event, all we had to do was make sure we stayed within that group as we ran. The boy now named Monoma says to them. From our spots in the middle ranks, we could fully observe the quirks our rivals had and judge their capabilities. Only a fool would obsess over winning the preliminary rounds, wouldn't you agree? You plan this as a class? Katsuki snarls. It wasn't totally unanimous, but I'd say it's playing out well. It's better than chasing after a temporary frontrunner like a horse with a carrot waving in his face. Oh, while I have your attention, I think that Inasa guy gave you a pretty accurate nickname. Chihuahua, how hilarious. I wonder if he could give me a collection of more things to call you. Katsuki's mind begins to go beyond that of his maximum rage limit, the aura around him swirling like a burning fire, as his team mates look on in fright. Kirishima, we have a change of plans. Before we take down Deku, we're gonna kill every last one of these B-list idiots. Izuku, seeing this go down, raises an eyebrow in confusion. Huh, so those Class 1B guys had a long-term strategy that involved throwing the qualifier. I guess that could help them leave a bigger impression with the audience. Everyone does kinda love an underdog, I'll admit that much. Showing up next to Team Shiketsu, we see Todoroki, the rider of his team. Comprising of Tinya Ida, Momo Yaoyorozu, and Denki Kaminari. Izuku, upon seeing him, couldn't help but feel a wave of anger emanating from the boy. While it wasn't as obvious as Katsuki's, he could tell it was there, though not directed towards his team. So you must be the guy Inasa was talking about. Todoroki, right? Correct, he said in a monotone attitude. And I'll be taking that headband now? And now we've reached the halfway point of the game, Present Mike said through the speaker. As the cavalry battle enters its second half, it's anyone's game. Class B has made an unexpected showing, but who will wear the 10 million points in the end? That's the real question, sports fans. Wow, you're kidding, it's already halfway? Man, time really does fly. Izuku comments. So to answer your question, no, I won't be giving you this headband, if that's okay. This isn't something you can just joke about. Todoroki tells the boy, I will be taking that headband of you. If I didn't think this guy would have the guts to try and corner us. Guess he's showing his true colors. Fumikage comments. Just say the word Izuku, and I'll have Nu come down and distract them. Nah. Inasa answers. Huh. Nu's done plenty. I think you should give that bird some rest. Besides, I have no doubt that Izuku's barrier can keep that headband on his head. Fumikage stares at Izuku, noticing him slightly rubbing his head with his right hand. Is something wrong? Nothing for you to worry, Fumikage. Just getting a slight headache is all. I see. Well then, how about we get this confrontation out of the way? The two teams stare each other down, with Todoroki in particular staring at Izuku. You know, now that I'm seeing your face, I can see the resemblance to Yagi in my class. Well, it is kind of obvious. My last name is Yagi after all. Though I am curious. If you had this kind of power, why not go for UA? Power such as that could have guaranteed you a spot in the hero course. Well, as certainly interesting as that sounded, I'm afraid going for a second-rate school such as UA wouldn't have helped me grow as I have. Huh. Despite us being the only 4 first-year students at Shiketsu, the benefit is that our teachers get to put more attention into how we grow. They're not distracted with having to deal with so many students. Huh. You may have a lot more people in your class, let alone the hero course, but that's only because anyone can get into UA these days. 0.2% my arse. You are powerful, yes, but even if you use all of your power, I doubt you'll ever get this headband, let alone best me. What was that? You heard me. I know you've only been using half. But even then, compared to us, the rest of you are just a bunch of weaklings. Upon hearing this insult to his pride, he unintentionally began to glow in a bright light, as hot flames began to expand from his left side. His teammates, upon seeing this, couldn't help but be in surprise by this development. That's more like it. Izuku comments. Todoroki, your body, it's. Ida, we can talk about this later. As much as I hate using my left right, this guy has made me angry. Angry enough to consider using such a disgusting power. So what do you say we rip that headband from his stupid head? Right. Yaoyorozu, be ready to protect us. You got it. And Kaminari. Oh, I know what I gotta do. Momo began to create what looked like a large iron pole, and what appeared to be a large blanket covering everyone in their team aside from Kaminari himself. I hope you made something strong. Yaoyorozu, indiscriminate shock. 1.3 million volts. As the other teams also began their assault on Team Shiketsu, nearly about to either get hit or dodge the electrical shocks, Shinszo, who had freed one arm to unzip his high-collar shirt, begins to open his mouth. Todoroki, cover your ears. The one that put us to sleep is gonna do his thing again, Ida called out. Shinszo, what are you? Don't move. In a split second, all of the teams had suddenly frozen in place, with the other 4 teams being shocked violently, and Ida unable to advance their team. What the heck? Why aren't I moving? Nice save, Shinszo. Inasa said out loud. So that's his deal. Whatever words he shouts out, he can compel whoever hears them to act upon it. That's how he was able to make everyone fall asleep at the obstacle course. A very versatile power indeed. Todoroki thinks to himself. On top of that, he's only used 2 commands. Who knows how many he truly has? He's truly a very dangerous factor amongst them. The effects begin to slowly wear off, with Todoroki quickly immobilizing the other 4 teams with his ice quirk, as a result of channeling it through the iron pole Momo had created. Will you look at that? Todoroki's stopped all those teams cold in their tracks. Present Mike yells out. Guess he really capitalized on the move Hitoshi Shinszo and Kaminari pulled just now. And with only 4 minutes remaining, there's not much time for dilly-dallying, so move it. Damn it, Todoroki says out loud. He begins to try and shoot fire out of his left side, still annoyed at the fact he had to resort to using it over someone, wounding his pride. But unlike his control over ice, he barely had any for his fire, with it acting more of a nuisance than an actual danger, as signified by the lack of burns on Team Shiketsu. Seriously? This is your maximum? Fumikage says out loud. I had heard that Endeavor was a rather strong hero given his status as the number 2 hero, but if this is the maximum potential you have, then I am sorely disappointed. Todoroki's pride was stuck once more, with the boy mind flooding with various different forms of anger. Anger at this team for wounding his pride, anger towards himself for resorting to use his father's disgusting fire quirk, and anger towards his father, who had cursed him with this power. In that moment, he couldn't think about how to snag that headband, with every attempt to grab it being either blocked by Izuku's barrier or Ida being too slow to get to them. In that moment in Todoroki's mind, it became clear that he was not going to be able to steal the 10 million point headband. He just couldn't. And as the last 4 minutes passed to 30 seconds, Todoroki just chose to give up, satisfied with the total of 1,360 points his team had collected from stealing the headbands off the 4 teams that he froze in place. Time's up, and with that, the second round is officially over. Present Mike yelled out as the alarm blared out. Now, let's take a look at who our top 4 teams are. The 4 large screens began to display the results of the event, with a large chunk of text appearing before it. In first place, Team Shiketsu. Holy moly, we did it, Inasa yelled out. We ended in first place, man, that was heart-pumping. Indeed, Fumikage answered. Salmon. In second place, Team Todoroki. In third place, Team Yagi, who despite all the crazy stuff going on managed to snag their team a spot on the final. And in last place we have Team Bakugo, who somehow managed to save themselves from elimination. Wow, that was way too close. We were almost eliminated, Mina said with a sigh. But, at least we made it. So I doubt there's any reason to feel bad. Shiro said to his teammate. I don't think our leader would agree with you. Like, at all. Kirishima said blankly. As Katsuki began to scream out violently at not getting first place, the crowd began to cheer once more at the result of the event. These 4 valiant teams will advance on to the final round, but before that, I think it's best that everyone gets a well-deserved lunch break. The sounds of cheering began to fill the room and the speakers, as a female voice began to speak. Way to go, boys, you're doing Shiketsu proud. What? Ms. Joke, how did you get in here? Present Mike said, freaking out at her sudden appearance. Principal Nizu gave me this special key to get in. She explained. I wasn't going to come here, but then I heard Mr. Aizawa was commentating, so I had to come here. Speaking of, let's get married. No thanks. I'm good. Oh, come on, Aizawa. You don't have to give me the cold shoulder. So just marry me. I said no. As the two continued to bicker, quickly turning off the microphone to prevent the crowd from listening, Todoroki stood in one spot while looking down at his hand. His teammates had already disappeared to go to the cafeteria seconds after the lunch break was announced. But he didn't care. He was more concerned by the actions he had taken during the event, the use of his left side. I said I'd never use this to attack. But as soon as I was overwhelmed, I broke my own promise. At this rate, he'll win, and I'll end up exactly who he wants me to be. As the many teams began to funnel their way to the cafeteria, we see Team Shiketsu do the same, with Inasa being more pumped up at the prospect. I can't believe we made it to the final event, Inasa said with a smile. Those guys were all over us, and yet we still managed to overcome them. That I can agree with you on. Fumikage said to him. Hey guys. Izuku spoke up. You guys go on without me. I just gotta head to the restroom real quick. Oh, sure dude. Whatever you say. The three began to walk away from Izuku, with the young white-haired boy heading over to the bathroom and washing his face with the sink water. However, as he exited out of the bathroom, the sounds of loud hulking footsteps are made known to the young man, whose ears twitch as a response to the footsteps. Young Yagi, it's nice to meet you. A deep voice spoke. Izuku turns his head around to see a hulking figure standing over him, a large man with blonde hair and a smile brighter than the sun itself. Hello, All Might. The two stare each other down in the empty and long hallway, his own blue eyes meeting with All Might's. I'd like to have a word with you, young man. Izumi at this moment was having mixed feelings, specifically about Izuku. Ever since the fact of their familial connection was revealed, her classmates had bombarded her with several questions all about him, in particular, the other female classmates. Questions such as why his hair was white, how tall is he, or just what is his power, were the main questions she was asked, and every time they entered her ears, she became more infuriated with his presence alone. But despite all of that, even she wondered exactly how things became like this. How exactly did Izuku get to this point? How did he get that kind of power? But these questions quickly left her mind, as she stared at the food she had gotten from the cafeteria and began to indulge herself. Izuku, even if you have some fancy new powers, I will show that they are nothing compared to my own. She thought to herself. Over with Izuku. He stared at the hulking figure with his eyes filled with confusion. He knew that his father was All Might. There was no doubt about that. But to say he was surprised by this sudden interaction was an understatement. The last time the two had talked was when he was just starting at Shiketsu. So why he wanted to suddenly talk to him was a question Izuku knew not the answer to. You want a word with me? Why? Well, young man, there's a question that I wanted to ask you. Okay, so just ask me here then. Well, the nature of this question is rather important. It would be best if we found a private room to ask my question. Very well then, let us find a private room. The two walked through the long corridors of the stadium, quickly finding a soundproof room that was rather well decorated. So, now that you've brought me here, what did you want to ask me, father? Well, young man, it's in regards to your pa. Wait, what did you just say? Are you really at that age where your hearing is starting to fade? Izuku asked him. I said, what did you want to ask me, father? All Might, having heard this, immediately explodes in a cloud of smoke, returning to his skinny form, as vital fluid began to pour down his face. Well, this is certainly a sight to see. But I'd be careful if I were you. You might get blood on your suit. But how long? What? How long have you known about me being All Might? Approximately a year. Izuku answered. I believe it was when you first told Izumi that I discovered your identity. Toshinori's eyes widened slightly, recollecting that first moment in his mind, trying desperately to figure out where Izuku was at the time, but couldn't find anything. I was upstairs when you first told her. I wanted to say something, but I felt that it wasn't smart of me to do so. Izuku explained. Oh, and you don't have to worry your little head about it. I haven't told anyone your identity. I saw no point in doing so. Toshinori lowered his head in what looked to be shame, with a small hint of relief. Had his son gossiped about his identity, things could have potentially escalated quickly. If it was discovered that the symbol of peace had a secret family, who knows what could have happened? He didn't want to think about that possibility at this point in time. He had to continue with his conversation. So tell me, why exactly did you want to talk to me after so long? Toshinori remained silent for a short while. For whatever reason, He wasn't able to find the words he needed to say, only being able to stare at his son with a somber, yet worried expression. Izuku, for most of your life, I haven't been the father that you needed. I focused my time and attention on your sister, believing it was necessary in order to prepare her for the thorny path of being a hero. But in spite of all that, I wish to be someone you can rely on, to turn to when you have a problem you need help with. Where are you going with this? Izuku asked him. Izuku, during the 9 months Izumi and I were gone, did you ever get approached by a man who called himself All for One? Izuku looked at his father with further confusion. He never did hear his father utter this man's name before, even during the one conversation he heard all those months ago. Was this guy some nod to the phrase all for one and one for all? Izuku was not quite sure, but what he did know was whatever his father was asking of him, he was not sure who All for One was. All for One? Who is that? And why are you asking me if I've heard of him? Toshinori let out a worried sigh. Despite his son's answer, he wasn't sure whether or not he was speaking the truth. He didn't have Naomasa to help him in this regard. But all he could do was trust his son's word. I see. While I would ask where you got your powers from, I feel as if I don't have the right to know. Toshinori commented. So, mind filling me in on why you asked if I knew this guy? Of course. It's only right for you to know. Toshinori sat down on a chair, with Izuku doing the same and taking off his hat and sunglasses, showing off his distinct blue eyes to his father. As I understand, you know about the truth behind my power, correct? Yes. You called it one for all or something. Yes. Now what I'm about to tell you is something I haven't told Melissa, so I want you to listen carefully. You see, the power known as one for all was originally derived from another odd quirk, a power that's significantly different from the one I once possessed. The name of that quirk is All for One. All for One. Wasn't that the name of the guy? Did he really name himself after his power? How moronic. While it was a moronic name, there is fear in what this power can do. For starters, it allowed its user to take quirks from others. Then the user could keep the quirks for himself or give them to someone else. Like, this guy could steal powers from people? Yes, Toshinori confirmed. This was back when quirks were just starting to show up, before society had figured out how to deal with the newly powered among them. When quirks first appeared, suddenly, it was impossible to say what it meant to be a normal person, to be human. Laws and human rights were hotly debated, and as a result, civilization's progress stagnated. I did hear people discuss the possible future of humanity had quirks never appeared. They often believed humans would be taking interstellar holidays by this point. Izuku commented. During that chaotic period of change, there was one person who managed to rally many people together. The man known as All for One stole quirks from others. And then, with his overwhelming abilities, he spread his influence across the country. He manipulated people to serve his purposes and committed evil acts with little resistance. Hold on, you questioned whether I had met such a man while you were gone, but that doesn't make any sort of sense. Wouldn't this man have died by then? One who steals quirks has no limits. Anything's possible. There are quirks that halt aging. He probably has something like that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The reason I asked you if you met a man by this name was because, well, I was worried that you had met this man, and he gave you a quirk in exchange for your loyalty. Huh. When I discovered that you ended up in Shiketsu after the race, I had thought the worst had happened. I had thought that you made a deal with the devil to get to this point, all because I didn't step up as a father. I didn't wanna. No matter what I say, I would be in the wrong. If you became an ally of All for One, I would only blame myself for you going down that path. Toshinori finished, before slightly sobbing. Izuku's eyes widened upon hearing this. While it was true that the appearance of his powers would be rather unexpected to his family, he almost felt rather insulted that his father insinuated such a situation occurring. But after a bit of thinking, Izuku did understand where he was coming from. Given his father's understanding of All for One, it would make sense that he would suspect such an interaction between his son and his arch-nemesis. Because of this, all Izuku could do was place a hand on his weeping father's shoulder. I understand. What? I understand why it was you believed that I received this power from your enemy. I also understand why I wasn't considered a suitable candidate for your power. I never showed the drive, nor the potential to utilize the power of One for All. Izuku spoke. But that matters not to me anymore. Huh. This power I have is mine and mine alone, and I won't deny that I was blessed with this power because of my bloodline. But I trained my hardest to be able to use it without being a burden to those who need my help. I want to show the world that I'm no longer the weak and pathetic version of myself everyone ridiculed. So I don't care that I didn't inherit your power, because I'm going to become the strongest with my own strength and power. Toshinori sees his son's determined smile and couldn't help but be hypnotized by it. So much of it reminded him of not only his own determined smile, but his teacher's. In a way, it almost made him cry again. Son, now then, I must be going. The next event is going to be starting soon, and I don't want to be late. It's true you didn't step up when you needed to for me. In a different life, I could have ended up being one of all for one's pawns, but that's not what's happening in this life. I can see you want to step up, so I'll give you a chance to do better. Izuku said to him, not because I think I deserve treatment for your wrongdoings, but because I believe it is the right thing to do. I won't let something as stupid as this shackle me from greatness. I will show you that I will be the strongest and greatest hero of all time. So watch me. Watch me shine brighter than even you could have. Izuku began to walk out of the room, leaving Toshinori alone by himself. But instead of being sad at the possibility of Izuku being a villain's pawn, he instead grew a soft smile on his face, his eyes shining ever so slightly before staring up at the door. Izuku, thank you. Out in the stadium grounds, we see the audience cheer in excitement, with anticipation growing greatly at the last event of the sports festival. Get those foam fingers in the air, it's almost time for the last round, Present Mike yells out. The moment we've all been waiting for, boys and girls. The event that will blow every other event out of the water, it's time for the tournament battles. Many of the UA students began to chat amongst themselves in regards to the tournament, each commenting on what the tournament could actually be. However, for our 4 Shiketsu students, only one thing was on their minds. Oh man, I'm starting to get goosebumps, you feel me? Inasa commented. Shinszo nods his head in response. Please, if we manage to get this far into the competition, I feel as if we have nothing to worry about. Fumikage responds. Plus, even if only one of us wins, it would show the world just how much more powerful we are compared to these other UA students. You know, when you say stuff like that, I get the feeling your ego is starting to grow bigger. Inasa says back. Hardly. I'm just stating the obvious. These people and their quirks are a joke. Out of all the UA students in the tournament, only a handful are an actual threat. So the chances of us winning are astronomically larger with that fact. Oh, okay. Whatever you say, dude. By the way, Yagi, are you better now? Yeah. Why do you ask? During the cavalry battle, you were rubbing your head after using your barrier. I was worried you were getting exhausted. Oh, don't worry about that, Fumikage. I should be fine now. I see. Good. It would be disappointing having to fight you if you're exhausted. I wouldn't want to either, though that's if you can get to the finals. Sounds like a challenge. The two in their conversation, establishing a new rivalry between them, and ready to see what kind of tournament will be taking place. Now, you may have noticed that we have not shown the typical 1 versus 1 tournament board. Well, that's because we've decided to spice things up this year, Present Mike yells out. The board above them turns on, this time displaying an entirely different tournament bracket. No way are we. That's right, we're doing 2 versus 2 styled battles if one person from each team gets knocked out. That doesn't mean that they are out of the competition. Teams will be sorted based on a random generator, as well as the matchups. So be prepared for all-out battle of duos to see who is the best. 2 versus 2s, huh? Sounds quite interesting. Fumikage comments. Now then, take a look at the bracket, my dear viewers. These are going to be your partners and opponents. The screen above begins to randomize the names of the 16 fighters, forming teams of 2 with mixed results. Whoa, sick, I get to be with Yagi. Inasa yelled out. Must be nice. While you guys get paired up together, I'm stuck with Tape Boy over there. Though I'd say I would probably be the only one advancing our team anyway. Still, I'm a bit surprised they implemented 2v2 battles. I've never seen any UA sports festival do such a thing. I can agree with you on that, but I suppose we just have to deal with it. Fumikage mutters. The brackets become divided in sets of 4, with each team being pitted against each other in the classic tournament style. Guess Inasa and I are the very last match of the bracket, which means that if they advance high enough, I might be able to fight them. Izuku thought to himself. Still, I have to make sure I use infinity sparingly, otherwise things might take a wrong turn for the worst. Izuku began to formulate several plans on how to handle each of the fights with Inasa, each scenario taking into account the various quirks and methods of using them by the UA students. But after a thinking on the various plans of attack, the tournament finally begins, and the students are escorted off the stadium grounds to the stadium seating area. Hey, sports fans. Are you ready? After all the action you've already witnessed, it's time for the real battles to begin. Present Mike yells out. Can you feel the excitement? Despite the fact that our competitors are with one teammate, sometimes the odds are stacked against them, so at some point, they will need to fight an unfair fight on their own. Now heart, skill, strength, wisdom, courage. They'll have to use all of these things to rise up against the unfairness. In response to the cheers coming from the crowd, Present Mike began to make various DJ hand movements. All right, audience, without further delay, let's welcome our first 4 fighters. These 2 titans of power are the top of their game. Both coming from respectable hero families. It's Shoto Todoroki and Tenya Ida from the hero course versus these 2 wildcards. May not be the same on the social ladder, but they definitely could win this one. It's Mei Hatsum from the support course, and Denki Kaminari, who's also in the hero course. As Present Mike began to explain the rules of the tournament, the 4 students approached the arena with determination on their faces, whilst the other students and participants spectate at a different part of the stadium away from the crowd. Come on, Kaminari, you can do it, Mina screams out. Yeah, you show them just what you're made of, Zero yells out afterwards. Did we seriously need to be seated next to them? Fumikage mutters. How annoying. Don't worry, Fumikage. They're just excited, that's all. Izuku tells him. Whatever. The most they could do is provide me some earplugs before they start screaming again. However, much to his annoyance, footsteps began to approach him, with source of them being revealed to be Mina, which confused the 2 Shiketsu students. Hey, she says out loud. And what do you want? Fumikage responded back. Nothing, just want to chat with your white-haired cutie pie classmate of yours. Huh, cutie pie? Well, I think that's my cue to leave. Fumikage muttered, before leaving his seat. Fumikage, wait, don't leave me. Izuku tried to stand up from his seat, but was immediately grabbed by his arm by Mina, who forced him to sit back down on the chair, using some sort of hidden strength, something Izuku found surprising. So, Yagi, why is it that your sister hasn't told us about you? Well, she and I don't really get along, so maybe that's the reason, he said nervously before chuckling. Oh, well, that's a shame, because I wish she told me about you sooner. Huh, why? Because I get to have another curly-haired bestie. Wait, you're best friends with my sister? Well, I'm not sure if she views it like that, but I kind of view all my classmates as besties, even my Netta of all people. Huh, okay, he said with skepticism. Izuku, despite understanding the girl's intentions, couldn't help but grow red in the face. Whether it was because of teenage hormones rushing through his system or the rather hot weather, Izuku couldn't help but feel embarrassed at the close contact he was in with her. So anyway, Yagi, I want to ask you something. Begin. Present Mike yelled out. The 2 turn their attention to the arena, where they see Blonde and the pink-haired girl charge at the 2 hero course students. All right, time to show those business CEO guys what my babies are made of, Hatsum yells out. As for Kaminari, he began to glow brightly, as electricity began to generate from his body. Time to give it my all, cause I plan to end this in 2 seconds flat. As the 2 began to charge at Todoroki and Ida, Ida's engines began to smoke up, ready to go full speed. Don't worry, Todoroki. I've got this. No. Huh. Apologies. But I will be the one to end this. As he says this, ice began to generate from the bottom of his foot, and a giant ice spike suddenly grew into the sky, catching the 2 students in the cold cage. Hey, what gives? Kaminari said while shivering. Oh, come on, I didn't even get to show off my babies. The 2 continued to shiver in the ice, while Midnight did her best to brush off the small parts of ice forming on her costume. Hatsum, Kaminari, tell the truth. Can either of you 2 move at all? Are you kidding? Obviously not. My body is freezing. Welp, you heard it, folks. Hatsum and Kaminari have been completely immobilized. Todoroki and Ida advances to the 2nd round. The crowd collectively began to feel sorry for the 2 students, each of them saying nice try, much to Kaminari's annoyance. Todoroki, on the other hand, began to melt the ice using a minimal amount of his fire quirk. Sorry about that. It was a bit much. I was angry is all. Izuku, upon seeing the scale of that attack, was rather curious. Despite how well executed and powerful it was, he felt as if it was still unrefined. Whatever the cause of this was, it made Izuku both hopeful and worried. Holy moly, it ended just like that? Mina shouted. Todoroki really doesn't know how to hold back. Wait, has he done something like this before? Well, not explicitly, but there have been a couple of times where he did go a bit overboard. Man, it must be crazy having him as a classmate. I know, right? He totally reminds me of this one character from a show I watched when I was little. It's honestly quite scary. Really? Yeah. Only instead of saying, I must capture the avatar to restore my honor. He's more dark and brooding than that. Izuku merely sighs at this comparison to the fictional character she is referring to, before turning his gaze back into the now clear arena. Well, folks, despite the first match ending rather anticlimactically, I believe it's time we get on to the second match of the first round. Present Mike spoke out loud. On the left, we have truly strong hero course students. One of them is a rather well-cut green-haired lady who has a mild temper. It's Class 1A's Izumi Yagi, as well as her explosive partner, Katsuki Bakugo. Versus they may not have flashy quirks, but these two young heroes in training can definitely hold their own in a fight. It's Achiko Uraraka and Ojiro Mashireo. The two teams stand at their sides completely still, their eyes locked into each other's, with Ojiro being slightly embarrassed at this predicament. If the two of you are smart, you should drop out of the match. Katsuki yells out. It's clear neither of you can stand up to me, much less the two of us. Well, that's a bit insulting, Ojiro commented. But either way, I'll have to refuse. There's no way I'm going to wimp out just because of a threat like that. What about you, Uraraka? With a silent nod from Uraraka, Ojiro turns back to the two fighters, motivated to stay in the ring. Oh well, you had your chance to run, Katsuki snarled. And without any wait, it's time to begin the second match. The buzzer blares out, signifying the start of the match, and Ojiro and Uraraka make their assault on the two. To start, Ojiro, using his tail, propelled himself into the air, beginning to spin in a fast motion, before attempting to strike Izumi. But with a quick step, she managed to dodge his strike, and countered with a flurry of fast-paced attacks. What the heck? When did I even get punched just now? Wait, is she still punching me? He said in confusion. After pausing her flurry of attacks, Ojiro once again began his attack, swinging his tail like a sword in order to at least try and knock Izumi out, managing to land one critical hit on her. But to his surprise, she does not seem to move from her spot. What? How is she still in place? He thought to himself. Izumi, seeing an opening, once again began to hit Ojiro with a flurry of combos. Some on his stomach, some on his arms, and many on his poor face. With each passing strike, Ojiro felt himself become overwhelmed and overpowered, beginning to lose consciousness, before getting hit with the final strike, sending him flying out of the arena. Ojiro Uraraka yells out. But Uraraka's cries of concern fall on deaf ears, not only because Ojiro is seen out cold, but also because Katsuki began to attack her again, firing off several different explosions at her, and blasting her near the edge of the ring. Oh snap, Ojiro may have gotten flung out of the ring, but it looks like Uraraka's still going strong. Come on, round face. Quit making this more annoying than it has to be. Uraraka struggles to lift herself from the ground, barely able to stand on her two legs. No, I'll keep on going. I can still fight. She weakly tries to run towards them, making herself lighter with her zero-gravity quirk, before going full attack mode on Katsuki, using various moves like an uppercut, a low sweep, and even tried to pull a full Nelson on him. But Izumi, being the intelligent fighter, caught her off guard and began to unleash a flurry of combos on her. With each strike, Uraraka could feel her body being more and more broken, her bones on the verge of breaking severely, before seeing herself fly out of the arena and onto the grass. Uraraka and Ojiro are KO'd. Yagi and Bakugo advances to the second round. Midnight yells out. While many of the UA students were worried about their beaten classmates, Izuku looked on at the two victors with a rather excited expression. The two had gotten stronger since they last met, so knowing this, Izuku was more than happy to know that they were at least going to put up a fight before he defeated them. Well, folks, that was another anticlimactic match. But hey, at least we got some fighting. Now let's hope this next fight is a lot more entertaining. Izumi and Katsuki leave the ring, brushing past the next team consisting of Fumikage and Zero. Weaklings. Katsuki muttered. Is your classmate always that arrogant? Fumikage asked Shiro. Yeah, he's like that all the time. But you get used to it. Whatever, just don't stand in my way. Hey, we're teammates. We're meant to work together. Wrong, we're not teammates. We're merely students at different schools forced to work together. But even if I were to consider you a teammate, you would only hold me back. Fumikage and Shiro began to walk out into the sunlight, catching the attention of the audience, who cheer at the next match coming forth. We're moving on to the third match of the first round, and expectations are high to see what these Shiketsu students are made of. Present Mike yells. The first team, both competitors may have black hair, but these two couldn't be more different. In fact, I'd say one of them may be Aizawa's secret love child. It's Hanta Shiro and Fumikage Tokoyami. Secret love child? Seriously, that what he calls me. Versus we got the silent wild card of Shiketsu High, Hitoshi Shinszo, and UA's very own Momo Yaoyorozu. We may be from different schools, but in this match, we're comrades, so let's win this together. Salmon. Huh. Why did you say salmon? After reaching the arena, Fumikage stares down at Shinszo, a smile forming on his face at the opportunity to fight his classmate. Shinszo, I hope you know I won't go easy on you in this match. We may be classmates, but in this fight, we're rivals, opponents to each other's strength. So give me everything you've got. Salmon. With both teams in the ring, let the third match begin. Upon hearing Present Mike yell begin from the speakers, Shinszo immediately unzipped his high collar, exposing his snake and eyes mark on his mouth, before opening it widely. Blast away, he shouted. Shiro, being exposed to the command, was seemingly blasted away by Shinszo, suffering the same fate as his other classmates, and being knocked out of the ring. Looks like Shiro got a one-way ticket to the Shadow Realm, but in all seriousness, just what kind of power does that Shinszo kid have? If I may comment. Aizawa mutters. Based on what I've observed from the events prior, it seems that the boy's power is based on the manipulation of one's will. Wait, seriously? With any type of command that he speaks, it becomes reality, causing those that hear it to act upon it. Holy moly, now that's a pretty insane ability. As the crowd began to murmur to each other, Fumikage merely gazed up at the commentator's box and gave them a rather foul look. I would be okay with them explaining Shinszo's ability if only they didn't make this event televised. But I guess that's what happens when a school doesn't take things like this into account. Fumikage thinks to himself, nice one, Shinszo. If we keep this up, we can totally win this. Salmon. Okay, I really don't know why you're saying that, but whatever, let's just win this. Momo without a second thought began to rush towards Fumikage. Equipping a metal pole in her hand, she attempted to swing the pole and hit him in the stomach. However, this would prove to backfire, as she suddenly felt a surge of electricity hit her entire body. It's a shame you weren't stronger, perhaps your teachers need to train you better. Commanding Nu to continue the assault, it began to fly towards her, hitting her with electrical strike after electrical strike. But in response to this, she begins to flee and try to circle back towards Fumikage, so she can see Nu. Makes sense, she possesses a significant amount of cursed energy, possibly even having the same amount as me. He thinks to himself. Don't move, Shinszo shouts from behind. Fumikage felt his entire body begin to stiffen up as a result of the command, his limbs unable to move as a result. Return, he shouted once more. Suddenly, Nu dispels in the air, with Momo finally rushing her way back. Nice work, Shinszo. You've provided me an opening. Now let me make this an official win. As she leaps into the air, about to drop kick him out of the arena. However, Shinszo's don't move command eventually stops the temporary paralysis, allowing Fumikage to move once more and begins to unleash two hand signs. Max, Elephant, Nu. The two creatures in question get summoned quickly, with Nu flying behind Momo, while Max Elephant unleashes a massive torrent of water from its trunk onto Momo, drenching her. What water? Nu now? Nu flies down onto the scene, striking Momo with its electroshock wings before flying above her. This causes Momo to get electrocuted and remain in place. Fumikage, seeing an open opportunity, dashes towards her with determination on his mind. It's over for you. Now accept your defeat. As the electricity dissipates, Fumikage leaps into the air, mimicking what Momo was about to do to him, and drop kicks her, sending her out of the ring and causing her to skid across the grass. Yaoyorozu is out. Only one person left on both teams. Midnight yells out. As the crowd yelled out in excitement, Fumikage dispelled New and Max Elephant, confusing Shinszo. Shinszo, I respect your strength as your classmate, but I feel that if you use your powers anymore, that you would be too weak to win your next match. So how about we make a binding vow for the rest of this match? Shinszo raised an eyebrow at this. He had never heard of the term binding vow before, but given the nature of the words, he assumed it meant some sort of established agreement. Regardless, he was curious as to what Fumikage was proposing. During the course of this match, neither of us will use our techniques. No Shikigami, and no more of your commands. Just our fists. So what do you say? Shinszo looked at his hands before looking back up at Fumikage. Sure, he had sparred with the others using only his fists, but in an actual fight, he never did so. But that didn't discourage him. In fact, that only motivated him more. Should someone learn of his powers and how to counter them, he would need to learn how to fight. So, walking up to Fumikage, he puts his hand out for a handshake. Salmon. Well, sports fans, I won't lie to you. I have no idea what's going on either. Present Mike says while scratching his head. Aizawa, on the other hand, merely observes the interaction, seeing a faint cyan glow emit from Fumikage's hand. I'm glad we came to an agreement. Though, it is a shame I have to start off with a sneak attack. Shinszo is unable to react to this, as Fumikage suddenly throws an attack, making contact with his stomach, as a powerful explosion-like sound travels through the arena. As a result of this, Shinszo coughs up a large chunk of vital fluid onto the ground. Holy moly, look at that, sports fans. Fumikage just landed a rather nasty strike on Shinszo. Talk about betrayal. But Shinszo doesn't fall to the ground at this attack. Instead, he responds with his own attack and punches Fumikage in the gut. A decent hit. But with attacks like that, there's no way I'd low. However, something strange happens to Fumikage, something he never expected to occur. A second hit managed to hit him in the same spot, except Shinszo didn't throw a second punch. Instead of being hit with his fist, he was hit by a wave of cursed energy that was delayed during the initial hit. What? I got hit by a wave of cursed energy? But how? Did he intentionally delay his cursed energy to create a second attack? I must know, he thought to himself. Tuna. Shinszo began to hit Fumikage multiple times with the same attack over and over again, with each physical attack being followed up by a wave of cursed energy, causing Fumikage to also cough. After standing his ground, the two boys would eventually clash in a battle of punching barges, each taking significant damage from each other's attacks. Both were continuing to trade blows, a small smile growing on their bruised faces. However, something that caught Izuku's and Inase's attention, as well as Inase's attention, was the last attack landed by Shinszo. Unlike his other attacks, this one was significantly different from his makeshift two-hit attack. Black and red lightning sparked from Shinszo's attack, with the distortion in space being the final nail that would suddenly send Fumikage flying back. Holy moly, what was that? Inase shouted. Izuku stared in awe at this attack that he had just witnessed. He had never seen an attack like this described in the books given to him by his late grandfather, so seeing it for the first time was something he found spectacular. Tokoimi is out. Shinszo and Yaoyorozu advance to the next round. Midnight yells out. Fumikage lifts himself from the ground, putting his left hand against his rib and wiping his mouth with his right hand. I never expected him to have two techniques in his arsenal. I should have considered something like this. But this loss was my fault alone. I got arrogant and decided to create a binding vow with him. He thought to himself. Just as he lifts himself from the ground, Shinszo approaches him, offering his hand to him. Mustard leaf. He mutters. Don't worry, Shinszo. I'll be fine. It'll take a lot more than that to put me down. Congrats on your victory. The two shake hands, with the crowd's excitement growing exponentially as a result. Would you look at that, folks? In a surprise twist, Shinszo managed to snag the win for his team. What an exciting match, folks. Wow, who would have thought Shinszo had that kind of attack? Pretty bizarre. Yeah, you can say that again. Yo Yagi, our match is coming up, we better get going. Mina says to him. Oh right, we best get moving. Cool, no hard feelings, okay? As Mina and Kirishima walk together to their side of the ring, Inase walks towards Izuku, placing a hand on his shoulder. Man, she sure is confident that she'll beat us. You don't expect us to lose, do you? Don't worry, Inase. As far as winning this match goes, they don't stand a chance. The buzzer blares out after some time, and the crowd begins to cheer once more. in anticipation of the next upcoming match. Well, folks, after 2 disappointing matches and 1 rather exciting one, we're now on to the last match of the first round. Present Mike yells out. On one side, we have the rock and acid duo of the hero course, Eijiro Kirishima and Mina Ishido. All right, Mina, let's make our class proud, Kirishima says while cracking his knuckles. Let's. Versus we haven't seen much of these 2 young man's techniques, but the mystery behind them may soon be unveiled. It's Shiketsu High's very own, Inasa Yurashi and Izuku Yagi. The crowd cheered in anticipation, while Izumi, and by proxy Katsuki, observed the fight from above, wanting to see what exactly allowed Izuku to enroll in a school like Shiketsu. If both teams are ready, you may begin. While Kirishima and Mina activate their quirks on command, Izuku and Inasa merely strike the same pose together, with them lifting their right arms and making it seem like they are holding a sauce bowl. All right, Izuku, it's time to get cooking, Inasa tells him. Yeah, all right, boys. It's time to kick your butts, Mina says to them. And I won't go easy on you. I'd like to see you try. But I have one question to ask you. Did you pray today? Huh? Did I pray today? What are you talking about? The sound of a clap echoes through the area, and Kirishima, having swapped places with Izuku, looks on in helplessness as Izuku runs up towards Mina. Mina, look out. Wah. In a swift motion, Izuku lands several swift punches on her face and body, before landing a powerful gut punch that sends her flying out of the ring, causing Kirishima to cry out in worry. Mina. Before he could react, Izuku sprints back to them, with Inasa landing a back punch. Kirishima goes to block Izuku's incoming attack, but Inasa ends up clapping his hands, causing Izuku to swap with him and land his attack on the same spot. He continued clapping his hands, constantly switching with Izuku as they began beating down on Kirishima, who was unable to fight back against them. Even his hardened skin was useless against their attacks. Holy moly, Kirishima is getting pummeled on all sides. He can't fight back. Present Mike yells out. Such teamwork. No way Mina got knocked out in seconds, and Kirishima can't even do anything. Zero comments. Yeah, for real. Those 2 are in perfect sync with each other. The 2 Shiketsu boys watching from the grandstands merely look on at the fight, feeling slight pity for the redhead, as their 2 classmates continue to jump Kirishima. Izuku, seeing no reason to continue the fight, lands 1 more clean hit on his stomach, sending him flying out of the ring and flabbergasting the audience. Kirishima and Ishido are out of the ring. Yurashi and Yagi advance to the next round. Voila, that was certainly something. Present Mike comments. But, now that all the matches are done, it's time for the first match of the semifinals. After a short time of walking, Inasa and Izuku return to the grandstand, with some dirty looks from the other members of Class 1A being sent towards them. Tough crowd. I wonder what's got them worked up, Inasa says to his classmates. It might have something to do with the way we fought Kirishima. You did disrespect him with that tactic of yours. Who cares? It's a 2 versus 2 for a reason. I don't know. I think we were a bit excessive, Izuku says with guilt. That guy ended up having several bruises because of us. Bruises can heal, Yagi. I wouldn't worry too much. Besides, this next match will be something these guys will be focusing on more than what we did. Izuku looked forward in front of him to see the next match in front of him. However, unlike the other matches, he only ever paid attention to 1 person in the ring. His sister. More specifically, her eyes filled with nothing more than unbridled hatred. Whoa, that look. I've never seen her with that look before. Izuku thought to himself. What's this hatred I feel? Well, folks, with the beginning of the second round of the tournament event, let us welcome our 2 teams. On the first team, we have the Todoroki and the Ida family's youngest sons. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tenya Ida and Shoto Todoroki. Present Mike yells out. Versus these 2 may not be as impressive on the social ladder, but I have no doubt these 2 will be on equal footing. It's Izumi Yagi and Katsuki Bakugo. Shoto stared at Izumi with a look of dissatisfaction. Despite having knowledge that Izumi and Izuku were siblings, he felt insulted that he had to fight what he viewed as the inferior siblings, and because of this, he made his thoughts known. Hey Yagi, Shoto said out loud. But Izumi didn't respond to his sudden interaction, continuing to stare down at him while the bangs of her hair covered her eyes. You know, at first I thought you were someone worth defeating to prove to my father that I don't need his power. But after seeing your brother's power, I realize now that you were nothing more than a weakling. You may have had All Might personally train you, but a quirk like yours can only get you so far. Face it, compared to me, you're nothing more than my lesser. The words enter her ears, and yet even still, she does not respond. Instead, she clenches her fist, with blood starting to seep out onto the concrete. All right, folks, now that both teams are at the arena, let's officially start the first match of the semifinals. Present Mike yells. Your brother is better suited to beat. That way, I can show my old man that I don't need his power. Tenya, you can take care of her. Ida silently nods, while Izumi's sight continues to be hidden from her enemy's view. Ready, begin. Ida began to sprint towards Izumi, fully intending to quickly knock her out of the ring with a fast roundhouse kick. But as if something had occurred that prevented him from doing so, we see Izumi throw a powerful punch at Ida, sending him flying out of the ring, much to Katsuki's and Izuku's surprise. Holy moly, folks, in a shocking display of power, Yagi has suddenly sent Ida flying out of the ring. Izumi, how did you? Katsuki, I don't want you to interfere. This is my fight, she tells him. She began to walk towards Shoto, with the latter getting ready to attack her with a powerful ice spike, but after blinking once, she suddenly appeared in front of him, causing him to freeze slightly. So, I'm the lesser of you, huh? You know, for the supposed son of the number 2 hero, you really are acting like such a pathetic loser. I'll enjoy snapping you back to reality. Shoto scowled at Izumi. His pride had been attacked by this girl, who at this moment was making him shake in fear. No, it wasn't because of her, he thought to himself. Something else must be going on. But at the same time, an ever-growing presence invaded his mind, a presence that for some reason forced him to slightly activate his flames. There we go. Much better. Izumi began to attack the boy, hitting him with a couple of punches to the face, before grabbing him by the back of the head and slamming it into the ground. However, Shoto attempts to use this as an opportunity to launch an ice attack at Izumi, but utterly misses as Izumi weaves away and grabs him by the back of the neck and slams him into the newly made ice spike. Come on, you just activated your flames, so use it, she said as she repeatedly slammed his head into the ice spike. All that power, and you're being beaten by someone weak like me, come on. Put a little backbone into it. Shut up, he yells out. He unconsciously tries to burn the girl despite his hatred for his father's power. But like before with the ice spike, Izumi effortlessly dodges the attack and grabs Shoto by his hair. The look on Izumi's face screamed of boredom to those who saw it. But what came next would forever be ingrained into Shoto's memory. She continuously began to pummel the boy's face, small chips of teeth flying out as if he had been hit by a truck. Bruises began to form as she continued to throw punch after punch, making it completely unrecognizable to the general public. You know, I didn't have to go easy on you. I could have easily continued doing this to you. But seeing you like this has gotten me bored. You may think you're strong with just half your power, but in the end, while the rest of us are giving it our all, you'll end up being left behind because you wouldn't get over your stupid things with your father. Who cares what your father did? That fire is yours, she yells out. She drops the boy on the concrete, leaving him a mess, while Midnight rushed over to him. I want you to remember that. I want you to remember what happened in this match. In all your most private moments, I want you to remember that I was the one who beat you. You're lesser. She began to walk away from the now unconscious Shoto, looking amongst the grandstand, as Midnight raised her hand up in the sky. Ida has been knocked out and Todoroki is KO. Bakugo and Yagi move on to the grand final. Izumi, having spotted Izuku in the stands, raised her hand up in the air and points towards him, her face twisting up into a grin. Izuku, seeing this, doesn't change his facial expression one bit. He subconsciously knew what message she was giving him, and he knew exactly what she was after, but he didn't care to give a grin back at her. All Izuku did was lift himself from his seat, ready to begin his second match with Inesa. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.